All right, I think we're live. I hit the button, but before we actually get started, I had to do a complete restart of my PC. Some of my settings may have gotten changed. There was like an update. So I'm going to need people in the chat to let me know how everything sounds before we actually get going, because I know there were some sound issues before and everything was kind of changing. I've been fiddling with it, but let us know. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Xbox 2 podcast. I'm Randall Thor 19. And with me, as always, the one and only Jez Corden. What's going on, buddy? It's been a little bit. It's been a while.
It has been a bit. I was worried about you, man. You've been sick as a parrot, or sick as a dog, or what? Sick of something. What were you sick with? Come on, give us all the slimy details.
I had the flu. I caught the flu right after Thanksgiving, which I
Ah,
here's the thing. So my entire family works in medical profession, right? Like my sister's a nurse, and all that stuff. And so we're spending Thanksgiving with them. Uh, like as soon as dinner was over, I had to go lay down, man. Like I was not feeling good, and I haven't felt good all week. And then the other day I caught vertigo. I usually get vertigo once every couple years, which I don't know if anybody out there knows. Vertigo is basically where you tilt your head a certain way and you immediately get dizzy.
yeah,
Um,
my mum gets that. I think
yeah.
vertigo.
So not only am I finally overcoming the flu, I now have vertigo to deal with as well. So that is why, well, quite frankly, I have not been posting on Twitter. I have not been making a video. I mean, I haven't made a video since like the end, like right after Thanksgiving, I think, or maybe even before that. Like I just kind of just been sitting in front of the TV, watching TV shows. Like I watched like all of Watchmen. I watched the entire first season and second season of The Expanse. Yeah, I just been chilling, man, watching TV. Uh, Although I have played Pokemon, because I know you.
Good.
I know that you want to talk about it. So I have played some games, but mostly I've been laying low, trying to wait until I feel better. But we couldn't miss this show because
No, it's been a. I was I was looking forward to a quiet week after all the Black Friday, Cyber Monday stuff. Like that's a busy time of year for us. The busiest time of year for us. I was thinking, finally, Black Friday's over. I can finally go into December a bit chill. But no, there's been tons of news over the last couple of days. So still, burrowing away on all the stuff. It's been a pretty busy week. So
it
we've
has
got
been
a
a
lot
pretty
to
big
talk
week,
about
and we wanted to do it before E3 or before E3,
before
before
E3.
Thanksgiving, but I just couldn't do it, and like I said, we couldn't miss this week because wouldn't you know it, Jazz? Wouldn't you know it, Xbox Lockhart, which we had said, what, 2 months ago now, that we were both hearing was not dead and was never canceled, suddenly is not dead and not canceled. But nobody listens to us.
Ooh,
They
no,
listen to
nobody
Jason
listens to me.
Schreier at Kotaku, right? We'll
Yeah,
talk. We're gonna talk a little bit about that. A lot about that because you what did you tell me today? You 100% know for a fact that Lockhart is real and it exists, right?
yeah, and like unless something crazy happens between now and next year. And like I always think about the Surface Mini, which was cancelled literally days before its announcement. That I'm always cautious to say something's definitely coming out when it comes to Microsoft. But right now, it's looking like it's real, And we always said I never heard it was cancelled. But like everyone else was saying it was cancelled, and it came from the original reason everyone was saying it was cancelled was because Phil said in an interview with Business Insider that their focus right now is Project Scarlett, what you saw on stage, blah 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 blah. But that's not exactly saying that Lockhart didn't exist. But for some reason, everyone ran with it like that's what it meant.
Well,
I,
Digital Foundry did a video where they were pretty much like said that they had heard that it didn't exist or was canceled. Then Z Huge came out and said it was canceled, I believe. And then Matt at Reset Era, he said it was canceled and that it was had been canceled for a lot of time and basically it was canceled for quite some time. So everybody's like, oh, okay, we got all these reliable insiders. They know what we're talking about. Everybody was like, oh, I guess Lockhart is dead. But we'll get more into that, obviously, a little bit later. So before we get into everything, Jez, what have you been playing? So we can kind of talk about Pokemon, because I know you're dying to talk about Pokemon. I know you're dying for me to give my thoughts about Pokemon.
I'm not going to go on and on about Pokemon, but for context, this was for charity, and we have raised $680 for charity,
Mm-hmm.
which is not bad considering we're not like huge audience or whatever. So that's $680 for charity going to children's hospitals in America. So that's pretty damn awesome in my opinion. But pretty much all I've been playing is Pokemon. For the last couple of weeks, I've been visiting family in the UK. So all I've basically been playing is Civilization. I've been playing on xCloud a lot. We can talk about my xCloud experiences later on in the show, maybe. But I played a lot of Civilization on xCloud. Not xCloud, Xbox game streaming, like streaming locally from a computer, from an Xbox to my phone and stuff like that. So I've been playing a lot of Civ. My God, that game is so addictive. Have you played Civ?
I played Civilization Revolution on the 360, which I actually quite liked. But
Dude, this is
yeah.
like Civ is just for some reason, for whatever reason, Civ has always sort of passed me by. Like I play a lot of 4X strategy games on PC. Like, I like my Stellaris, I like my Paradox interactive games. Crusader Kings and Europa Universalis and stuff like that. But for some reason, I just never played Civ, even though I bought them in Steam sales. I just never played them. And but like Civ 6 came up for review on Xbox, and I was like, yeah, I'll review that. And man, it's really is like one of those games where it's like midnight and you think, okay, I'll just do one or two more turns. And then you look at the clock again and oh my God, it's 6 in the morning. Where's the time gone? It really is one of those kind of games.
Right.
Um, that's basically what I've been playing. But like I'm back in Germany now, and I bought Death Stranding.
Ooh, Death Stranding. Here we go.
Yeah. So I haven't played it yet
Oh.
because I'm knee deep in Pokemon right now, Rand. I am breeding Pokemon with perfect stats so I can try my hand at competitive battling. And maybe this time next year I'll be the global Pokemon Master esports champion, and I'll be too busy being a millionaire Pokemon Master for this podcast. Maybe not.
So I take it you really like Pokemon.
It's just see, this is why I want to get your opinion, because you don't have any nostalgia for Pokemon.
No, not at all.
I realized playing Pokemon that it's not so much. If this wasn't Pokemon, if this was just a random game, and I didn't care about the world or the characters and the gameplay loop and stuff like that, if it was just a random game I'd never played before, it probably wouldn't hook me like it does. But there is just something about it that sort of presses all the right buttons for me and takes me back to being like a little kid again. It's like I could never review Pokemon because I'm just too damn close to it, man. I am too close to it, too nostalgic about it, and I don't know what it is that it's like magic, it goes beyond the games. I bought a Pokeball Plus, which is $40 just because it contains an extra Pokemon in it, and you connect it to your Switch and you get an extra Pokemon. It costs $40, Ren. And it's just a plastic Pokeball. And I've even been watching the anime, the kids anime. That's how bad it is right now for me. So that's just my mood, man. It's just fun going back in time. Being a kid again.
So I'm gonna ask everybody to who's here right now to make sure you hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, because I know some people are going to unsubscribe here in a minute after I give my thoughts about Pokemon. Okay?
Oh, no.
So hit the like button.
I might subscribe.
Or
so
maybe
watch
get ready to hit the dislike button depending on where your stance is on this. So I will say I actually played I played a whole bunch of games, but I wouldn't even say I was really playing them because I just wanted to I just kind of wanted to show people, and some people have noticed because they've definitely tweeted me, that the way the achievements are now on Xbox and Gamerscore is a complete joke. I put up 11,000 Gamerscore in 4 days on Xbox. this month.
The hell?
I could easily put up 150,000 if I wanted to.
Dude, that's like
Um,
more than I've got in 3 months.
I know.
Like, how do you
and
do this?
Because there's a publisher called Radalaika, and every single one of their games is you can get 1,000 Gamerscore in 20 minutes. So people are like, "Oh my God, Rands is, how you doing this?" And I'm like, "Dude, you don't understand. Like, there are so many easy games out, and I just needed something to distract me because I wasn't feeling good, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna play this game. No, they're like, I played Old Man's Journey, which is on Game Pass. I actually liked that quite a bit, but like I played 10 of these super easy games just because I kind of wanted to, like, I don't know, I wanted people to be like, how is he doing this? And it's like, well, it's because these games are 15 minutes long. But I also played Concrete Genie on the PlayStation. I bought that when it was on sale. I liked it. It's definitely very interesting. Like, I like the painting mechanics and stuff, and it only took 5 hours to beat. $20. I would probably wait for even deeper sale on that game. I don't think it was already only $30, and I got it for $20 because it was on sale. And even then, I think probably should be $15, right? But Pokemon, okay. Keep in mind, I'm 10 hours in Pokemon, right? I'm at the fourth gym boss, right?
Gym leader.
The gym
God,
leader.
use the right terminology.
I've never played a Pokemon game before in my life. I've never seen really gameplay of Pokemon before. I've never seen the anime or the TV show or anything. Like, I don't care about Pokemon. So I'm gonna ask you to tell me. I need you to tell me why you like Pokemon.
See, this is what I was talking about a minute ago, man. I don't know. I don't know why I like Pokemon. It's that bad. I don't even know why I like it. I like collecting the little dudes. I like training them up. I like breeding them so I get the better stats. I don't know. It's just addictive. Like, I've been trading with friends and stuff. I guess it's kind of like, it's almost like a collectible card game, but 3D. Almost. I don't know what it is, man. I honestly couldn't tell you.
Okay.
It's beyond the game for me now. It's like, kind of like, well,
let me ask you this.
Too close to it.
Pokemon Sword and Shield, are they aesthetically different from the other Pokemon games?
Not really.
Okay, so
obviously the old games are 2D, right? But like, since like Ultra Moon and Sun and the ones before that, X and Y, when it started getting a bit more 3D, then yeah, it's basically the same anime aesthetic, cell shaded or whatever.
Okay, so basically it is what it is, right? I mean, this game is pretty much the same game as it's always been, essentially, is what you're telling me. There's nothing. This game is not any different than any of the other ones in any really meaningful manner.
Kind of.
Okay.
I mean, the wild area is like the 3D area. That's sort of kind of new, I guess. But fundamentally, they're basically the same.
You know what my first thought about this was when I started playing it? I thought to myself, this is a game made for 12-year-olds. Through and through. This is a game made for, like, people in 6th grade. Like, from the aesthetics, from the story, from the characters, from how it looks. I'm like, I sat there and I did to myself, this is a game for kids. Which, look, no offense to anybody who likes Pokemon. Like, I get it. People like Pokemon and stuff, but more so than I thought it would be. Okay, I will say there is an aspect of the game I do like. Some of the gym battles are fun, and they're really the only battles that are fun, because it makes you do a little bit more different stuff. Because otherwise, like, most of the battles you fight in are just 1v1. One Pokemon versus, like, another Pokemon, and I know, like, people say, well, maybe you haven't experienced Japanese turn-based RPGs. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I've beaten Final Fantasy VII 5 times, Chrono Cross, Final Fantasy VIII. Like, I've played turn-based JRPGs.
Pokemon's not like those. They're not
right.
like those.
So it's like, like I'm thinking maybe a complicated battle system, and it's just one Pokemon versus one Pokemon, and I just
See, this is the thing, right? It's like the story part of the game doesn't really do the complexity of the battle system justice. Like if you go on YouTube and watch like esports level play, like it gets really complicated. It really genuinely does. Like I'm just like scratching the surface of it now because I've never been into a competitive Pokemon either. I usually just collect a few of them and get bored and move on. But like there is like a level. It's kind of like it's supposed to be accessible, like easy to play, hard to master kind of thing.
okay. I mean, I
And
get
and
that. Sure.
and the story just really doesn't do that justice. And like one of
No,
the things
no, it
that
doesn't,
Pokemon,
Jess. No, it
yeah, I know
doesn't.
it does. But one of the things Pokemon fans have been pissed about for years is like as they get older, is like can we have like a higher difficulty setting where like some of the higher level players can actually matter? Like you wouldn't use half the moves that are in the game in a battle against a computer. But at the end game, there is this like battle tower where it does get a bit more complicated. Like,
I just
and you do have to use strats and stuff like that. But
I don't hate the game. I just don't. I just find it to be so boring. Like I sit there and okay, so I do something and then I talk to somebody, but it's all just text based dialogue. But it's all text based dialogue written for a 13-year-old. There's nothing like okay, so like you go off on your adventure, which your parent doesn't even get. Like she's just like have fun, and you're just gone, right? I'm assuming you're gone for months, like, and you're with your buddy Hop, and Hop is written as this over energetic kid who wants to be like the next big Pokemon winner or whatever, right? And then every time you fight him, because you fight him multiple times, but you're training and he's your rival. Like every time you beat him, I'm just thinking to myself, okay, if this was a proper game, he'd be the villain of the entire story. Like, when is Hop going to become like this person where he's just like, you've taken everything from me, Rand, because I named my character Rand in the game. Like, my dream was to become Pokemon champion, and now you have. I hate you. Like, that would be what a proper.
Hop does have an emotional story arc actually as you
Does
play
he?
on.
Because it doesn't really seem like it so
Not,
far. Because
it's not like that. Instead of like. I'm wary to even spoil it because like Pokemon fans are rabid, even though the story is so kind of honestly rudimentary. But
So Sin Vendetta in the super chat says, Rand, I'm not going to unsubscribe. I just appreciate you just giving Pokemon a chance, even if it's not for you. I mean, that's what this is all about. Jez wanted me to play the game. We raised money for charity. I'm going to finish it, like I said I would. It's really tough for me to spend any
have you collected any Pokemon?
I
Like,
I have 90 of them so far.
How many?
Yeah, 90. Like,
That's
like
pretty good.
85, 90 of them. Yeah, like, so the
It's
thing
more
is,
than I had at that point in the game.
it's just, it isn't that interesting to me. And, like, when I played Star Wars Fallen Jedi Order, right, a game I loved, I played for like 6 or 7 hours straight. I can, like, 45 minutes into a session of Pokemon, I'm like, I want it to be over. Because, like, the music starts to grate on me, because it's the same music.
Oh, the music's great.
No, but then it's like, then you got to read all the text, and the story's not any interesting. And then most of the battles, when you're in the wild, getting from one spot to the other, aren't that interesting either. And I'm just like, what am I doing here? Like, it's not. I don't hate the game. Like, I played games that are much, much worse. It's for kids. And maybe there's like, that point where it's like.
Hearing your perspective is sort of giving me perspective on it now. And I think what drove me through the game was knowing that there is this end game that I can tap into, and there is this end game that I'm grinding now. And like when I got my like perfect stats trubbish after like days of grinding, it felt really good. And like, and that's like, even though like I got it in its trade, and like I've gotten like a perfect IV stats Chinese Pokemon in the trade too, and things like that just feel good to me. But like it was that knowing what the end game's like that kind of drove me to get through the story, I guess. And also as well, there's another angle of it for me because it is supposed to be set in Britain, right?
Okay.
And like the cities they do look like British cities. Like Motorstoke looks vaguely like Birmingham, and like the characters use British accents and stuff like that. I find that entertaining, but I guess that'd be completely lost on anyone who isn't British. But I don't know. I just get it. I just get it that half of my enjoyment of it is probably nostalgia, maybe more than half.
Like, and I get, like, if you've grown up with this franchise and you've always played them, that this is kind of just like it might be for someone who plays Call of Duty every year, just like a yearly or maybe every 2 year ritual where it's like, hey, Pokemon's out, I'm gonna go catch them
Yeah,
all, I'm gonna breed them
yeah,
all. And I would imagine most people play Pokemon don't play it for the story. They have their own reasons for it. But like coming as someone who has never played it before, never seen gameplay for the game, knows nothing about it, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sit down here on my Switch. Of course, it doesn't look that good because it's docked, so it's being blown up on my 55-inch TV so I can see all the imperfections. But of course, you're not playing it for that. I'm like, okay, let's get into it. And I'm just like, and by the way, I picked Score Bunny and I named him I Hate Jazz, which I thought was appropriate because I really did
oh,
hate you. Like, I was like, I really hate Jazz. And
love it.
I just, I don't know, man. Like the whole wild area is just way too big with like all these empty things. Like it's a completely empty area with all these same Pokemon running everywhere. But then sometimes there'll be a big one in your path, and it's like you don't know if you should fight him because then you go up to him and it's like, oh, you fight him, you're level 30, he's level 40, so you got to run away. It's like I don't that's not fun to me, like. And then when you do fight like a wild Pokemon. I think I wasted like 35 Pokeballs trying to catch one. I'm like, this isn't fun. Like it's like, oh, I'm throwing a Pokeball at you. Oh, it didn't catch. Oh, let me get your health down a little bit more. Here's another Pokeball. Oh, it didn't work. Here's another one, and here's another one, and here's another one. I'm like, is this supposed to be fun? And because I was talking to my buddy Gopher, who's playing at the same time, who loves Pokemon just as much as you do, and he's like, yeah, and I'm like, there's no way that sitting here for like whatever long it was for me to waste 30 Pokeballs trying to catch this single Pokemon is fun.
Man, this game's like easy when it comes to the catching as well. Like the first few games, like they had like multiple legendaries, and you get like typically through the story you get one ball which has an infinite like 100% catch rate, and you use that on the most powerful Pokemon in the game. But then there'll be like a bunch of legendaries that like are really powerful, kill all your Pokemon, and they've got a really low chance to be caught. So you end up using like anywhere between 30 and like 100 like Pokeballs on them, and the fights could take ages. And it's just like half the time you accidentally kill them, and then you have to start all over again. Like that's what it used to be like back in my day, you know.
What's this game rated on Metacritic, by the way? I'm kind of curious.
I IGN gave it a 9, right? I think it's rated fairly highly, isn't it? Like 7 or 8 or something.
I don't know, like whatever it is. In my opinion, it's way too high. But I mean, Nintendo does seem to get a pass for a lot of that stuff.
I think honestly, the game. I mean, look at this. It's got an 8 out of 10 on Metacritic and a 3.8 user score, because a lot of core fans were annoyed about it. You know, 605 negative reviews. People were pissed about this game because
Yeah,
like it does like have less raw content than the previous games, and like the in some ways, and the Game Freak explained that away, like new engine, new animations, did that sort of stuff, and then people were pointing out like the textures on the trees and saying, oh, the graphics aren't as good as Breath of the Wild, and the game's underfunded, and they're just pocketing the money from Pokemon Go and not investing it in the games. There's a lot of controversy about it.
I love that word. I
But
love it when you say it. Controversy.
controversy, controversy, but um, I. But that's the thing. I don't care about any of that stuff because I'm just hooked on the franchise.
Yeah, and
It's like
it
Star. It's
sold.
like Star Wars.
It sold like a ton. Like what, 7 million copies in 3 days or whatever.
Yeah, it's
So,
6-7 million or
but I mean,
something.
I guess that, like, that you appeals to the older people who have nostalgia for the series, and then also because it does skew young, that it appeals to that crowd.
Yeah.
So I can see why. It's
The
just,
memes are great too, man. I'm here for the memes as well.
yeah, I know you are.
Uh,
We do have
It's
a
just fun.
question from Albert Padro Trias in Super Chat. Says, "Hey Jez, thoughts on Sword and Shield dropping Pokédex?"
Oh, it's like what he means is that like they dropped like several hundred Pokemon from this game. Like
Yeah,
in the previous games, there was always a way to transfer them from the old games up to the new ones, and there's actually a subscription you can pay for on the 3DS, which stores them in the cloud. And like there are people have been collecting these Pokemon for 20 years and literally just been moving them up through the games because you can literally take Pokemon from the very first game that came out on the original Game Boy, and there are ways to move them up through the various games all the way up to the latest 3DS games. But then Game Freak cut that off for the Switch version, and they were like, you're not going to be able to bring any of those Pokemon back. And like the whole brand is catch them all, right? And that really triggered a lot of people. Personally, I get why they've done it. They want to shake up the meta, and it's kind of like what Hearthstone does when Hearthstone like removes a load of cards from its meta and puts them in a different league and stuff like that because they want to keep it feeling fresh. And like it was ridiculous. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I can already feel people falling asleep. But like the Pokemon esports was like ridiculous. Like everyone was just using the literal same teams over and over again, mirror matches, no variation, mirror matches constantly, and it was super boring. And the only way like it was just pure luck whether one team would win. So I get why they've done it, and it all depends on what happens in future games, I guess. I personally don't care, and I always use the new Pokemon anyway. Because
yeah.
what's the point in getting a new Pokemon game and not using the new Pokemon they've added?
I mean,
I,
I think my Score Bunny, or now who's evolved to his third form, I think he's like level 40 something. And I think my current crew is like that guy. I have you know the water boss, his turtle, I forget his name,
Dreadnought. Or
Dreadnought.
something.
Yeah, I don't know. Like
See, I don't even know the new Pokemon's names yet.
I have a whole bunch of stuff, but that's enough for Pokemon. I'll talk more about it when I actually finish the game.
Yeah,
Um,
we'll lay off the Pokemon for a few weeks now.
yeah,
But like, if you do want to donate to the charity, it's still live until the middle of the month, I think. Like, if you want to donate, I'll check out my Twitter. I'll post a link on Twitter later on, and
yeah,
I'll get Ram to retweet it. And if you want to donate, like even if it's a little bit, remember it's for the kids, man.
it's
It's
for
for
the
the kids.
kids. And Randy
It's for the
Johnson wants to
kids.
know, Jez, where's your review of the Jungle Cat?
Oh, interesting. Well, I've bought it with me to Germany, so I have it here. And for those who don't know, the Razer Jungle Cat is Razer's Nintendo Switch-like peripheral for mobile phones, and you can use it with Project xCloud. And I have been using it with Project xCloud in the UK. Problem is, Rand, Project xCloud is not available in Germany,
Hmm.
so I actually can't review it in the context of xCloud. But what I can use it for are things like Fortnite, I guess, and other mobile games. So I will be reviewing it. Um, in the context of xCloud, I don't think I can review it. Well, I suppose I can review it based on what my experiences in the UK, but it's a damn good device. But you know, it does expose some problems with xCloud Round.
Okay, what are some of the problems of xCloud?
Mobile phone screens are too damn small. I've decided. Like I've been playing. I've got a Galaxy Note 9. That's a pretty big phone. One of the bigger screens. I can't remember how big off the top of my head, but it's one of the bigger ones. It's supposedly a phablet. A Note. It's not like a smaller iPhone or something like that. But I just can't stand staring into those tiny little screens, and the text and the UI doesn't scale, and like trying to play Civ on that thing, and trying to read the tooltips and trying to read like if your population's pissed off and trying to read all those little details on the tiny screen, it actually hurts your eyes after a while. So like I ended up buying a tablet, which I find to be a much more pleasant experience. But of course, the Razer Jungle Cat doesn't dock into a tablet. So then I've got another problem. I think peripherals and accessories and stuff are going to be a real problem for xCloud to start with, unless they can figure out that UI scaling stuff.
Right, and
I don't know.
Phil mentioned you during the mixer stream that you were using a VPN. What didn't he?
Yeah, I have been using the VPN to because what it is Um, it does work in Germany, but the app is automatically blocked by German IP addresses because they're not ready to collect data on the game yet. In other countries, even though they are set up and ready to go. So what you have to do is you have to use a VPN to trick the app into thinking that you're in the UK. But the problem is my VPN app that I've got is cheap and crappy, and it drops connection all the time. So it's not a really great experience. So like it works okay for turn-based games for a little while, but it's just too laggy to play anything serious, and it's not a really good experience. But they did announce last week or the week before that xCloud is coming to Germany, Western Europe in early 2020. So, you know, they're having a. It feels like they're having a little bit more joy than Google Stadia over there, I think, with the rollout. But we'll see.
I guess we might as well talk about it because I brought up Phil and his Mixer stream. Phil caused a little bit of issue between
Oh yes.
Xbox and
Poor Phil.
Remedy and 505 Games. He maybe said something that he shouldn't have said, which was that Control didn't reach as many people as it should have, and that it's going to be on Xbox Game Pass, which caused a lot of people to freak out because people have been like, oh, like holiday sales are coming in, and I think like Control's been reduced the price quite a bit, and that caused Remedy to say, no, we're not in Game Pass, and even 505 Games to come out and be like, no, that was wrong info. So what's going on here, Jez? You have the head of Xbox on a stream talking about Control, saying that the game's coming to Game Pass, and then you have immediately after both Remedy, who made the game, and 505 Games, who publishes the game, say that that's fake news and it ain't coming. So what's the real details about this? What's going on? What do you think is happening?
Well, I did listen to Phil's stream because a few nice people on Twitter mentioned that Phil mentioned the fact that I was using the VPN to bypass their xCloud restrictions, and I just wanted to hear what they said about that. And then I noticed that he was talking about Control coming to Game Pass, and of course, Clobrill tweeted out, and our news team picked it up, and and a bunch of other sites picked it up, and it was like, oh my god, that's a pretty big win for Game Pass, And it is true. Like I haven't played Control myself yet, but a lot of people love it, and it feels like it flew under the radar a bit. And listening to what Phil said, it doesn't seem like it was a mix-up or he confused it with another game, or I often confuse Outer Wilds and Outer Worlds. I often confuse those two games because they have a very similar title. But Phil definitely knew he was talking about Control. He said like the game flew under the radar. We love our friends at Remedy, and it's coming to Game Pass. And it sounded like he was repeating like a talking point that it could reach more people and stuff like that. And it sounded like the deal had closed or whatever. But clearly that wasn't the case, and I don't think it didn't sound like Phil was making a mistake or he was misinformed or something. It probably like maybe he said something prematurely, or he thought maybe discussions are ongoing and he thought that they were finished or something like that. I don't know. But Control does seem like the kind of game that would hit Game Pass, and it does seem like the kind of game that Remedy and 505 will benefit from being in Game Pass if they get like a huge lump sum of money for that. But it sounds like may have jumped the gun a bit, and that's the problem with doing, because they were laughing about it, how they were going to pre-record that Mixer show,
They probably
and
should
then
have.
at the last minute they decided to do it live, and it sounds like there were like no PR people on hand to say, oh, you shouldn't have said that, we need to cut that. But they did it live, and now we're in this situation. So I don't know, maybe it will come, maybe it won't come, but it doesn't sound like he was just riffing. It sounded like it was a thing.
Yeah, and obviously for Remedy and 505 Games, you have like head of Xbox coming out there and telling people that it's coming to Game Pass is probably going to prevent people from buying the game on Xbox, at least anytime soon. Although people will obviously say, well, I thought putting games on Game Pass will make, people buy more copies of the games or whatever. Here's what I think happened. Like, imagine being Phil and having all this information in your head, right? That you can't share, or you can share at certain dates. Things that you know that you can't talk about because they're embargoed information. And I would imagine when he's talking about it, because, he's worked hand in hand with Remedy before, publishing Quantum Break and Alan Wake and stuff, and I think he's close to a lot of people at Remedy. I would imagine, like, they went to 505 Games, and they're like, we want Control on here, and, the deal was probably made, but it wasn't going to be announced until probably after the holidays are over, after the holiday sales for Control, after the Game Awards stuff, or maybe they win some awards, and, there's some more kind of, like, maybe advertisements for the game, like, oh, pick up Control, winner of Game of the Year, pick up Control, winner of this, and that, more people buy it, and then maybe, it hits Game Pass early January, maybe like February, and right? And I think he probably thought that the announcement has already been made. So he, in his mind, he was probably like, well, this is already out there, I'm just going to say it. So here's the thing, though. I bet you Remedy gets more money for this. I bet you they go back to Phil and they're probably like, you know what? We're gonna you cost us more sales. We're gonna need a bigger payout. And that's exactly what's gonna happen.
Probably. I mean, to be fair, Phil probably, if that is happening, Phil probably did cost them some sales.
Yeah, probably.
And I feel guilty that we covered it, but like when it's the head of Xbox saying it, kind of like, you cover it, it's breaking news, you cover it, and I've heard from other publishers that have said, like, Game Pass does create, not publishers, sorry, developers, that things like Game Pass and Epic Games Store exclusivity, they do create all sorts of problems like this, because and also Xbox Play Anywhere, like, they create problems that you wouldn't usually think of, because we only see like one side of the market sometimes. Like, for example, a lot of developers didn't put their games on Xbox Game Pass. Not Game Pass, sorry. If they didn't put their games on Xbox Play Anywhere, because it would mean that they'd have to price the game lower to match the price of the game on Steam, because PC games often have a lower price point, or they've been out for longer and stuff like that. So they're kind of like, well, if we put like our game on Xbox Play Anywhere for PC and Xbox, then we're sort of creating this scenario where the Steam version has a different price point, and it's all crazy, and we have to like lower the price of the Xbox version, and there's all sorts of weird stuff like that going on. But you can kind of see now that Xbox Game Pass is disruptive. It's a disruptive service, and that, like, if people think that a game's going to come to Game Pass for whatever reason, that's going to halt or damage retail sales in the interim, right?
Well, you know what it is? I noticed this years ago, and I've noticed a lot more with Game Pass, because Game Pass obviously adds a whole bunch of games. Like, my friend Pedro just launched day one into Game Pass yesterday, and I think there's another game launching today into Game Pass, right? They're constantly adding new games into Game Pass every single week. Here's the thing. I've noticed that before, a game will come out full price, like Control, $60, which maybe you like, maybe you don't like, but $60 is a lot of money for something that you may or may not enjoy, right? So people, it used to be, I'm going to wait for the Steam sale, right? Because at one point in time, Steam was putting on some really crazy sales, right?
I still do.
They still do, but maybe not as great as they used to, right? People would be like, I'm going to wait for Steam sales. And then what did the conversation turn to when Microsoft and Sony started offering free games? I'm not going to buy this game. I'm just going to wait for it to show up on Xbox Games with Gold and PlayStation Plus, right? I'm going to wait for it to be free. Now the conversation has shifted to, I'm not going to buy the game. I'm just going to Game Pass it. And I'm going to have to wait. And I've seen that being used more and more lately as a reason not to pick up a new experience. And trust me, like, I get it. Like, everybody's financial situation is, completely different from one another's. I want to play the games day one. I'm more than willing to spend the money to do so. And, I bought Control day one. I bought Star Wars day one. if I want to play it, I'm gonna get it, right? But I know I'm in a different situation than most people. So that's why I don't really like it. If you want to wait for Game Pass or you think it's gonna come to Game Pass, then you do you. Even though it's like maybe it never will, you can still obviously sit there and maybe hope that it might.
That's the thing. Even if it never does, there's always so much to play in Game Pass. For a lot of people who are in a financial situation where a lot of people are in a financial situation where dropping $60 on a game you may or may not like, especially digitally, is not a viable option. And even in the UK, the trading prices, even on games that are in really good condition, they're trash, So you lose a lot of money even if you trade it in. So for those sorts of people, and it's me when I was younger, I only had 2 or 3 games for my N64 because they were so damn expensive compared to PlayStation 1 games. And I only had a few games as well for the original Xbox because the used prices on PS2 games were just so much better, I was in that situation as a kid. And a service like Game Pass, where it's like Netflix, and there's just so much to play without having to spend so much extra money. You don't even need to really wait for the games because it's not like you're ever going to be short of stuff to play.
Well, my concern is that if you have the situation where Game Pass is so great and Microsoft is clearly spending money to get a lot of games to make sure people want to subscribe, right? Is that what happens 3 years from now when you've conditioned Xbox gamers to wait for every game to come to Game Pass?
Well, this is the thing, you see. This is the clever bit about subscription services, right? Is that once they've locked you in, they can upsell you on other stuff. Microtransactions or a higher tier. For example, I started paying for Spotify a million years ago, and now I've upgraded to Spotify Premium, and and then I upgraded to Spotify Family, which is even more expensive. And it's the same on Netflix. I upgraded to Spotify Netflix 4K version, and with the 4 extra users or whatever, so everyone in the house can use it and stuff like that. They can upsell you on other stuff, and Microsoft has so many services and systems pouring through it that it can add things to Game Pass to make it more valuable. And one of the things they're going to do, obviously, is they're going to one day come out with a xCloud SKU for Game Pass, where it's you can play the Scarlett version of xCloud that gives you a 4K stream, because obviously global internet speeds are going to get better and better and better. Every time I go home to the UK, I go back to the UK maybe 3 times a year at the moment. Every time I go back, the internet speed's been upgraded for free because the base speed gets upgraded, and then every tier of the internet speed gets upgraded. I think when I was a teenager, I think we had 50 meg down, and now we got 250 meg down on the same price tier because everything just gets faster and faster and faster as technology and infrastructure improves. So once Microsoft's locked people into Game Pass, they don't just stop there, Rand. They don't stop at Game Pass. They start upselling you with new stuff on top of Game Pass.
No, I know that, and I'm not concerned about that. It was more of a question to you, because now I got people saying that I'm reaching so hard, I'm full of crap. Like Master Jazz says, Randy reaching so hard, you're full of crap. You want to discredit Game Pass? It's so sad. Like what? I've only said positive things about Game Pass.
Right. See, this is how podcasts work. Someone plays devil's advocate.
I'm playing devil's advocate, asking Jez a question about the concern, because I'm gonna mention Reset Era. I probably shouldn't.
Do you have to? We have to.
I don't know how many Game Pass threads I've seen over the past 2 months.
Do we have
and
to talk
it's all this fake concern bullshit from people on there about how's Microsoft going to make any money? How are the devs going to feed their dogs? Is this going to change the gaming industry? Are we going to get terrible? The concern about it, and that was one of the concerns, that Microsoft is conditioning people to wait for games to come on Game Pass, right? The concern. I was maybe more making light of it, and I'm not really Reset Era. Well, maybe we'll talk about that again, but it's more like the concern of that. I love Game Pass. I just use it to install My Friend Pedro, and I'm gonna play, and that's how I'm gonna play through that. It's great.
The
I
thing
love
is,
it.
the thing is about subscription services is that for devs, it turns like what would in the past have been a single game. It turns a game into its own little business. Like for example, like Pokemon Sword and Shield, like it doesn't have a subscription attached to it right now, but you need Nintendo Online to do the trading and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
and I'm not
And
paying for Nintendo Online, Jess. Sorry, not happening.
I,
I was
I'm using
walking
it as an
around and
example.
I was walking around in Pokemon and I'm like, what are these like beams of light, right? Like what is going on here? And there's like, you need Nintendo Online. I'm like, I have Xbox Live Gold through Xbox
You need
Ultimate.
Nintendo Online to raid? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
you need all that
Okay.
stuff. You
That's
know,
another thing. I pay for Nintendo Online,
I mean,
and
it is cheap.
you
It
know,
is like what, $20 a year, which is
yeah.
big difference between $60
And oh
for a
my God, you
PlayStation.
get all the SNES games. You get Super
Yeah,
Metroid,
yeah,
man.
and maybe I should. But here's the thing: like, I pay for Xbox Live Gold through Ultimate, and I got Ultimate for 3 years for $1, basically. I don't pay for PSN Plus because why would I? I don't use multiplayer on PlayStation to play, the multiplayer portions of those games. I only turn on my PlayStation to play the exclusives, and currently, right now, all of Sony's exclusives don't have multiplayer, so there's no reason for me to pay for PlayStation Plus. And obviously, like, my primary system is the Xbox, where I spend 99% of my time, and that's just kind of what you get with Xbox. But I'm not paying for Nintendo Online. I don't care. Like, I'm not doing it. I don't need to check out the other stuff. Uh,
Dude, like, I love my Switch, man. I absolutely adore the Switch. Like, I remember we podcasted like about the Switch when it came out, and I was like laughing about that ad where they were like partying on a rooftop, all playing Switch together. Thing is, I've actually done that. Not on a rooftop, but like I've been like round family's house and played like Mario Party, people just having fun and stuff with like you know popping off the controller and stuff like that. Like it does what they said it would do,
yeah.
and like that portability is like an exciting part of Microsoft's business next year is in xCloud. And I know you don't care about it, but the fact that Microsoft's going to be everywhere, that also helps developers because it means that their games can go everywhere. Like there's this one game that I really enjoy that not many people talk about. It's Deep Rock Galactic. You know, it's a sort of Left 4 Dead kind of game with mining aspects, kind of like Minecraft. You fight waves of aliens while mining in a really cool sort of setting, and it's not something that I play all the time, but I've been playing it through xCloud because it's I can do more gaming in around my life. And I think that as well, going into next gen, squeezing more time out of people with instant load times and the ability to play games before they've installed through xCloud, which is another feature that's on the way, by the way. You'll be able to, before a game is downloaded on your Xbox, you'll be able to start playing through xCloud, and then once it's downloaded, switch to native because it's all the same system. You know, I don't know. I just went off on a tangent there. I'm just excited, man. I'm
I know
excited.
you're excited. I know you're excited. We
Like,
got,
a lot. Some people get scared of disruption. They get
yeah, they
scared.
sure do.
They sure do get scared. Disruption and Game Pass. They're scared of this stuff, and game streaming. They're scared of this stuff, and they have to come up with these reasons to be scared because they don't know why they're scared.
Change is
They
scary,
just
man. Change is always
yeah,
scary.
they're scared for the sake of it, and then they have to try and construct a reason to be scared, which is when they end up being hypocrites or contradicting themselves or just coming out with complete bullshit like these like huge reaches that just don't make any sense. And the discussions around Game Pass and whether it's good for the industry is just it's just so weird. It's like you can't argue that it's a bad thing right now.
No.
There's just literally nothing you can do. And if
Although,
you're spending that much energy trying to do so, it's just because you hate Xbox.
although Phil did torpedo control sales for a bit there, though.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's one of the problems.
He
And
did torpedo it.
but on the flip side, Remedy file
You
and
know,
say you've torpedoed our sales. Now we want more money.
I did see
So
some
maybe
people being like, "Oh my god, Phil did this on purpose. He wants to get back at him for going multi-platform. Or I saw someone actually say like he heard that they're gonna be bought with Sony, so he's trying to destroy their game. And I'm like, my God, some of the conspiracy theories that you hear surrounding some of this stuff is ridiculous. But shout out to Daniel J for the super chat. He says, "I wish I had Game Pass when I was a kid."
Yeah,
so
I
do
would have
I.
loved
Who
Game
wouldn't?
Pass as a kid.
And Sin Vendetta says, "Jazz, just curious, but do you really wear a tiara when you podcast with Rand?"
You know what? I've actually lost that tiara. I don't know where it is. I need a new one. Andy, I need a new tiara.
Maybe Phil did it accidentally on purpose. I mean, I guess it always. Yeah, I guess that's maybe he knew what he was doing and knew what he said. So I don't know. Well, obviously we'll have to wait and see on that one. But Jez, there leaks for games. Okay. Now before we get into Xbox Lockhart, which we have a lot to say about, and before we get into no VR for Xbox, which I have a lot to say about, which I think you might be surprised at my position on this one, Jez. A couple games were leaked for basically for PlayStation and for Xbox. One being
snap, son.
Yesterday, Vanquish and Bayonetta coming to Xbox One X or Xbox One remaster, 4K 60 frames on the X, presumably also coming to PlayStation on February 18th. They're going to be bundled. But it wasn't just Vanquish and Bayonetta, which, weirdly enough, was leaked 2 years ago as like a bundle. You remember that, Jazz? Like 2 years ago, this was a thing.
I completely forgot about it. But I was surprised to see it come back on the Microsoft Store, no less.
Yeah, so that game, I don't know if that's a Video Game Awards, reveal, but I don't think so, because I think Jeff Keighley said that nothing from the show has been leaked, because I think he said there's like 10 new games going to be shown there. But the other game that leaked through PlayStation Network, so now you have a leak through Xbox Store, and now you have this through PlayStation Network, is Resident Evil 3. The art went up.
Man, can we just bask in the glory of a Resident Evil 3 remake?
Oh my God, I cannot wait.
Seconds.
Oh my God.
Nemesis.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, man, like the Gravedigger worm boss fight. I can't wait to see all of those amazing moments. Like a lot of people didn't like Resident Evil 3, but my God, the first time Nemesis chased me in that game, I think like I had to buy new underwear. It was just terrifyingly awesome, and I am so hyped for this. And I'll tell you why. Another reason I'm hyped for this is because once they're finished with that, they can finally get on Dino Crisis.
Yeah,
right?
Dino Crisis is it. Yeah. I mean, because you knew this was coming after the success of Resident Evil 2. I'm surprised it's kind of happening so fast. Supposedly it's coming next year sometime, 2020. I doubt it's going to be a January launch. I think that seems a little bit new early. I think like Spawnwave mentioned that he had heard it as like a late 2020 release, which makes sense. And I think a lot of the stuff may have already been built with like Resident Evil 2 in mind, but like, my God, Nemesis, Resident Evil 2 is my favorite Resident Evil. Like, you get 2 and 4 like kind of the same for me, like as the pinnacle of the Resident Evil franchise. But 3 is pretty close. Although I do think they're gonna have to change things up with how Nemesis constantly tracks you down, because it might seem too similar to Resident Evil 2 remake with Mr. X jacking you down.
There's a lot of things that can do with Nemesis, I guess, because like the way Mr. X. Rand, I want to ask you something right now. By the way,
okay, go ahead.
When you were a kid, what did you call Mr. X?
God, I don't remember. Was he called something different in the U.S. version than like the overseas version?
He wasn't given a name, as far as I know, in the game, in the original. So everyone I know at school called him Hulk.
Hulk? Okay.
Yeah, because he looked a bit like the Hulk. I don't know. I just wondered what other people called him in different countries or whatever. Because that's what people called him in the UK, at least in my school. I don't know. Anyway, he in the remake he does behave very much like Nemesis did in Resident Evil 3, where he like follows you around, and that was like revolutionary for the time, because like in Resident Evil 1 and in Resident Evil 2, there's like the zombies couldn't follow you through rooms, and it was like that was a rule. And there was like there's a few moments where like they do follow you through rooms and stuff like that in the original games, but they're like set piece moments. It wasn't like part of the engine or whatever. They were like scripted moments. But like Nemesis was like, you know what? Screw that. You're not safe anywhere. Even when you're in a safe room, we're gonna change the music so you know as soon as you're exiting the safe room, I'm gonna be back on you. That's kind of like how Mr. X behaves in the remake. So man, what they're gonna do to make Nemesis even more scary? They're gonna let him attack you in the safe rooms, and just. I mean, he's got a rocket launcher, doesn't he? I remember like some of the things you had to do to get special weapons in the original Resident Evil 3. You had to like kill Nemesis with a knife or something, or at a certain speed. I can't remember, but like to get like the shotgun parts and the handgun parts and stuff like that. God, what a great game! I'm so excited. Capcom they're killing it right now, man.
Yes,
They're
they
absolutely
are.
killing it. Huge free updates for Monster Hunter World Iceborne as well, like adding new monsters and whole new events. There was a Resident Evil event for Monster Hunter as well, where like you turn into zombies and you could play as Leon and Claire. Ridiculous, man.
Yeah, and Sin
I
Vendetta
just
says
love Capcom right
you
now.
cannot move on to Dino Crisis without doing Code Veronica first. I know a lot of people have been asking for Code Veronica.
Oh
But
man.
then you know what people are going to say, Sin? They're just going to be like, well, remake Resident Evil 4 then.
I think Code Veronica probably should get a remake because I think Code Veronica was when things started to get a bit weird and uh I still like Code Veronica, but like it started getting sort of out of hand sort of at that point. I played Code Veronica was one of the only games I cast, like the only legit games. I had a lot of
See,
pirate games.
I
Sorry,
I
Sega.
I like this because these are full on remakes. These aren't like
Yeah,
Vanquish and Bayonetta are great. Like they're two of the like some of the best games from last gen, but they are just remasters, right?
yeah,
Sure, they're gonna play great, 60 frames per second for both of them. I mean,
yeah.
obviously they're the PC versions or whatever, but like those games are
I'm hyped
amazing.
because I never played
But
Vanquish.
like
I never
Resident
played it.
Evil, the reason Resident Evil 2 is so great is because they remade it from the ground up, and even though it's not Resident Evil, even though it's like completely 3D, where obviously Resident Evil 2 had the tank controls and you had the isometric camera, and they brought it to completely 3D. It's different but the same, you know.
Yeah.
And it's so good, and it's like, oh man, you just think back about Resident Evil 1, which they did remake for the GameCube. Man, I wish they would kind of do this remake for that now. And it's like, oh, Resident Evil 3. But then, at some point, it's like, well, they could do Code
Well, that's
Veronica,
like
but then
what
4, 5, and 6, you don't really need to touch. However, I do agree with you though, Jez. If you're gonna do something, you need to do something with Dino Crisis. You need to
well,
remake
I
that.
think like I think like they could remake 4 and 5 and 6, like and like tidy them up a bit because they're kind of like Resident Evil when they remastered Resident Evil 1 on the GameCube. They sort of they added like Lisa Trevor, like no spoilers, I guess. If you still want to play Resident Evil 1 remake, which by the way is amazing too, like they tidied up some of the loose ends and they made some things make a bit more sense and they they removed some of the cheesiness and stuff like that. Code Veronica has a lot of cheese in it still, like from that it's just from that era, where like budgets are smaller and there's just cheesiness everywhere. Like they could remake Code Veronica and reduce some of the cheese, close some of the loopholes and make it a little bit less silly. I kind of like feel like they could do that for 4 and 5 too. Like I, this might be controversial, but I am not a fan of Dragon Ball Z Wesker, for example. I
Yeah,
don't I don't like how Wesker became this sort of super duper, I felt like that wasn't in the spirit of Resident Evil. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they leave for that old. But I think they should do Code Veronica and Dino Crisis. Definitely. I'm hyped, man. I am
I'm
hyped.
like it's like now you have. I mean, 2020. It's like you got Last of Us Part 2, you got Ori and the Will of the Wisps, right? You got Cyberpunk, you have Final Fantasy 7 remake. Um,
Wasteland 3.
Now you got Resident Evil 3 remake. You
Is
have
that next
Halo.
year?
Well, I'm assuming so. I mean, the artwork's already being put up on PlayStation Network. I would imagine the announcement's
Pretty damn
coming
quick.
really soon. You got Halo Infinite next year. You got two brand new consoles: Xbox Scarlett, well, Xbox Anaconda, Xbox Lockhart. Although maybe there may be some discussion if they're both launching at the same time. PS5, and then next year you're gonna have Sony doing their reveal event where they probably reveal some launch titles and some stuff, and Xbox doing a media event as well where they probably reveal some stuff, and then you're gonna have E3 where it's just gonna be a blowout of all these like next gen game. Like it's, oh man,
Dude, next year is packed. I didn't
next
realize
year,
it.
next year's and it's like there's also like Neo 2, which I didn't mention because I haven't played Neo 1
Surface
yet.
Phone.
Um,
Surface Phone.
what else? You
No?
got like Nazi. You got like Zombie Army 4 is I think an early game. Interestingly enough, so far there's nothing for January. Last few years have been Capcom's kind of own January with this year with Resident Evil 2, the previous year 2018 with Monster Hunter, and then the year before that I believe was Resident Evil 7. There's always kind of been a big game releasing in January that at least hasn't.
There's an Animal Crossing launch in January.
It might, I'm not sure, but like I said, I don't really follow Nintendo very much. There's even rumors that Breath of the Wild is launching next year. Breath of the Wild 2 for Nintendo Switch is launching next year. Like that is Nintendo's kind of gun to go against new hardware from PlayStation and Xbox, is that they're going to launch Breath of the Wild 2, which maybe that's realistic, maybe it's not.
This is just crazy. Like,
a lot of games. A lot of games. There was talk that Spider-Man 2, for PlayStation 5 might get revealed. I would imagine it's going to get revealed next year. I think that game's coming in 2021. Probably Horizon Zero Dawn 2 will get revealed. Fable, I think that'll get revealed at some point at E3.
I'm trying to look up Animal Crossing now. This is important to me. Okay.
Yeah.
I know Animal Crossing's coming out in March.
Plus 10 game reveals at the Game Awards, so that's always exciting to look forward to. New Batman game, Batman Arkham Legacy, supposedly. Like, dude, there's like this year was a good year. It wasn't like great year by any stretch of the imagination. Definitely not as good as 2018 was. There was some.
They're sending off this gen with a bang.
Well, it's like this year. It's like Resident Evil 2 is one of the best games of the year, but in reality, it's really just a remake of an already great game. Right? It's like, and Sekiro was my first kind of Souls experience, so maybe I'm a bias towards that game. But like when you look at like the other games, it's like, man, there wasn't like, I don't know, there wasn't a Red Dead Redemption 2 or God of War for me this year. So it's like it's hard for me to put 2019 anywhere close to 2018. I thought Gears 5 was amazing, but even
here's a game for January. Brain Training for the Nintendo Switch.
Brain Training.
That was a pretty big game on the 3DS. Brain Training.
All right, so let's start talking about the elephant in the room. We're gonna talk about Xbox Lockhart, Xbox Anaconda, and the VR stuff. Comments from Phil, and let's start talking about Lockhart and Anaconda. Okay, this is so Jez, for 100% fact that Lockhart is real, right? And we'll go.
I know.
Let's start through the timeline here first, okay?
Okay.
So last year, I think it was you and Brad Sams both posted about Microsoft's Xbox Scarlett family of devices, right? Which were two. Basically, Xbox Anaconda, which hopefully I'm saying that right, because I usually say Anaconda or whatever. Dealer always makes fun of me for that. Super powerful Xbox, probably super pricey Xbox, but then also Lockhart, which was the super cheap version, right? And people, they ran with that. Everybody made videos about it. Everybody, made articles about it. And at E3, when they announced Xbox Scarlett, they didn't say a word about Anaconda or Lockhart. And like you mentioned earlier, Phil said they're only talking about Scarlett. People took that to mean it was just one device. Digital Foundry did a video where they said it was canceled. They heard it was canceled. You had a few insiders here and there, like Z Huge and Matt from Reset Era, all come out and say it was canceled. So everybody thought it was canceled, right? Yeah. And then around October, so around 2 months ago, I heard from someone I trust, a source of mine, tells me Lockhart's not canceled. Lockhart was never canceled. It was a whole PR thing, and that it's real. So I told Jez, right? Remember when I told you this? So I'm like, Jez, I think Lockhart's real. You went digging for info. You were like, you know what? I think you might be right. So you started to dig more into it. And then more and more, I started hearing from independent people who, don't know each other that Lockhart's a thing. But then you keep on hearing on Reset Era from supposed insiders that Lockhart doesn't exist. That's still canceled. These are from the same people that are always spouting that the PlayStation 5 is just a little bit more powerful than the Xbox Scarlett. Just a little bit more powerful. Lockhart doesn't exist. And I'm sitting over thinking to myself, is this guy know what he's talking about? Because I know Lockhart's real, right? Now personally, do I care if Scarlett's more powerful than PS5 or PS5 is more powerful than Scarlett? I don't care, right? So I'm sitting there, I'm looking at these guys like cross-eyed, and I'm just like, I know Lockhart is real. Why are these people saying that it's not, right? And then, Jason Schreier puts out the article yesterday, basically saying that it still exists, blah, 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 blah. Tom Warren confirms at The Verge. He asserts similar things, although I think he said it was more like he's not sure if it's coming at the same time as Anaconda. Like, he doesn't think, or maybe I'm wrong on this, but he thinks they won't launch at the same time next year. And then I talked to you because I've been sick this whole week. We haven't really talked very much. And you're telling me you have it confirmed that it's 100% real. So I'm like, what's going on here, Jez? Like, were we just ahead of the curve? Are some of these other people talking out there that have literally just making shit up and trying to be internet famous? Like, what's going on here?
I think I said on previous shows that I've had no evidence to suggest it was cancelled. The only evidence came from a vague comment in Phil Spencer's Business Insider article, and then people ran with that. But I never heard it was cancelled, and since subsequently you've heard and I've heard that it definitely is real, and I am unless something crazy happens between now and launch, and like I said, I always remember about the Surface Mini, which was cancelled at the last minute and now sits somewhere in a warehouse, piles of Surface Minis that never came out. I always say it with a bit of caution. I know it's definitely coming out because Microsoft can afford to cancel things at the last minute if it has a change of heart, But it does seem like they're gonna launch a more affordable SKU, next to Anaconda. Like Anaconda, I've seen documents that describe the positioning of these consoles, and basically it says Anaconda's the console that enthusiasts will want. It's the console that's more powerful. It's the console that's the next gen beefy monster. It's a monster, kind of thing. That's the next gen console. Whereas Lockhart will be the more affordable pitch for people who want to get some of the benefits of next gen, like maybe SSD load times and stuff like that. Maybe they want some of the benefits, better frame rates in games, maybe faster CPU, stuff like that. The new UI, because the architecture of the Xbox One operating system is a bit messy, which is what makes it laggy and slow and clunky and stuff like that. Maybe they release Lockhart for them, more affordable SKU, something to just keep growing the install base. Because let's face it, install base is God right now. It is absolutely God, especially in a world where xCloud is going to blow up the install base even further, and especially in a world where mobile phones aren't going to be able to stream games at 4K 60. So you're probably going to need architecture that is a little bit more affordable to put in those server blades when the time comes to it. I don't know, that's speculation, but Lockhart's a thing, baby, and we don't know the specifics on the specs. We don't know if it's going to be significantly less powerful than the X, or what will be the trade-off of buying Anaconda, a Lockhart instead of an Xbox One X. But my guess would be around is that Lockhart is the pitch for people who don't have or don't want to buy a 4K TV, because they're still pretty expensive. It's dropping I think the cheapest 4K TVs during Black Friday went down to about $300, and even that's a big ask for some people who've got a 1080p set and they're just happy with that. They don't see the benefit of 4K. Ryan McCaffrey from IGN only bought a 4K TV for the first time this week during Black Friday sales. Some people just don't want to upgrade.
Sure.
Oh,
They'll love it though. As soon as they go from 1080p to a proper 4K television with HDR, like you did.
yeah, like I don't even have like this. My TV isn't even 1,000 nits. I think it's like 800 nits brightness maximum, and the difference it makes to the depth of games is just unimaginable. You know, you just can't imagine it until you've seen it. You can't put it in an article. You can't put it in a trailer because you need to see it with your own eyes, because the display you're using to watch that trailer isn't good enough to render the HDR. It's not good enough to render those pixels. So for those people who don't want to upgrade because they just don't want to see the benefit, and that is the mass market. You know, the mass market doesn't see 4K as something so super necessary right now. Lockhart's the perfect option for them, and that's why it makes complete sense to me that they would do this. The reason people are freaking out is because they want to spread fear, uncertainty, and doubt because they don't like
Sure.
Xbox and they're acting in bad faith, and B, because they just kind of don't like anything that breaks the mold, and they don't get that Microsoft doesn't care. They don't want to have this situation where, like, they know that those people are locked into PS4 and they'll never switch to Xbox no matter what they do. So like those people are just like, they just spread this because they want to hurt Xbox because they know that they are never going to switch.
Well, I also
And
think I think there's a lot of people who don't really know anything. Who, like, you go on to a website. It was a popular one, is Era, and there's a lot of people spreading a lot of hate, and because they're worried now. The big thing isn't necessarily that Microsoft is like putting out this cheaper SKU, right? And I think for this whole 2 SKU thing to work, like, number one, the difference between both has to be measurable, like demonstrative, and I think it is. Like, the rumor is that Lockhart's targeting they said graphical power about the PS4 Pro, which, yeah, I've heard it's about like a 4.2-ish teraflop, but Navi GPU. So the thing is, like, Lockhart and Anaconda are going to have the same pieces to it, because I've seen people say, well, why don't they just use the X as the baseline then with the Anaconda? But it's like, you don't understand how different Lockhart's going to be. First off, like, the X has the shitty Jaguar CPU, right? Yeah, it has,
yeah.
and it has. I want to say it's a Vega GPU, or maybe it's a Polaris one, but I think it's Vega, 6 teraflops. I think it has 12 gigs of RAM in it as well, right? So Lockhart's basically have the same CPU as Anaconda, which is the Zen 2. So that's a major upgrade right there. It's going to have a different GPU. It's going to have Navi. So like 4 teraflops of Navi works out to roughly the same amount of power as the X at 6 teraflops, because they're kind of, the performance is, it's like, because I know people look at it and be like, well, 4 teraflops is less than 6, because they like, how could you have 4 teraflops for the Lockhart and then 6 for the Anaconda, or 6 for the X? That means it's less powerful. But it's like, no, but like a 4 teraflop, Navi GPU, or GPU as basically the same power as the X anyways. And then it's also going to have the SSD. It's probably going to have more RAM than the X, but not as much as the Anaconda. So it's like, it's basically going to be the same system. It's the same system, but just scaled back. So you're going to scale back resolution and all that stuff. But there's a lot of people out there like this is going to ruin. Like, because I read that entire thread, because I'll sit there, especially when I'm sick.
Why? Why do you do that?
Because I like to read what people say, and some people have legitimate concerns about stuff, and some people are clearly just the dumbest pieces of garbage I've ever seen, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm reading the whole thread, and everybody thinks with this move Microsoft has destroyed next generation. That somehow all the developers are going to focus all their efforts onto Lockhart, and they're not going to do anything spectacular, that Microsoft has basically ruined next generation for everybody, because that's how it works. And I sit and look, and I'm not a PC gamer, right? And I'm sure there are a lot of people in the chat that are much more knowledgeable than me, and I know, like, Dealer Gaming is one of them. Like, Dealer Gaming has an incredible channel. He's talked about Lockhart last year before anybody did, so he's much more qualified to speak about this stuff than I am, right? But there's one thing I know about PC gaming is that there are many different like specs of power with like graphic cards that you pay out the wazoo for and potato PCs, right? And they all run the same games, but there's just like the higher PC, the higher one runs it way better. It's because devs always focus to the higher machine and scale down. They don't focus on the worst one and scale up because it's harder to do, right? So I sit there and I'm like, all these people are so concerned that Lockhart's going to destroy next gen, and I'm sitting there like, what about PC gaming has been going on forever, where you have this wide array of configurations and power disparity between all these computers, but yet it runs perfectly fine. And considering most, if not all, of Xbox development and PS4 development is on the PC anyways, I don't understand how people are come to the conclusion that this is going to destroy creativity and the worlds and the games they're making. It's like they're gonna have this. It's gonna have the same CPU. It's gonna have the SSD so that you can build with that in mind. It's gonna have the same GPU. It's just gonna be a machine that just runs stuff at 1080p or 1440.
Dude.
Versus the system that runs it at 4K 60. Like
there are two types of people. There are like literally the people who are spreading fear, uncertainty, and doubt because they want to hurt Xbox because they think, I don't know, they're just weird and love plastic or something. And like for them, this is a sport and it's their life. And they get up every day, read the little forums, and think like how great they are and stuff like that. There are those people. There are other people who read those comments and believe them and get worried that there actually is something bad about this, and then they get worried and influenced by those loud, annoying voices. And then you've got like people who just genuinely don't get it, and like they can't like see past the tradition of the console cycle where we move from one generation to the other, and it's a whole new architecture and devs have to start from scratch and there's a cutoff point and all that sort of stuff. It's not like that anymore. It's like the development environment of Scarlett is going to be very, very, very similar to Xbox One, if not identical. It's just ERA. It's the same environment. It's just another SKU. It's like you make a version for the S, you make a version for the X, you make a version for xCloud with a more highly scaled UI if you want to. You don't have to, but you can. And then you can make a version for Scarlett which has 4K 60 or above. That's how it works now. And it's just, I'm not saying it's like super simple for the developers to do that, especially like when it comes to getting dev kits and testing the games and making sure that they work across all those SKUs and stuff like that. It's it takes time and it takes dev hours to do that stuff, but it's not like moving from, I don't know, the PS3 processor to PowerPC and then to x86. It's not like that anymore. It's not like Bethesda saying, we're not going to release the DLC for Fallout 3 on PS3 because it's too complicated to develop for or whatever. It's not like that anymore. It's just all sort of streamlined, and the technology that makes these games easy to develop for has improved over the years. And Microsoft and Sony have united around this x86 system, which lets developers make different versions of their games more easily. That's just the way it is now. So why wouldn't they release more options for people? Do you know how many like we always hear about the Samsung Galaxy S11 and the S11 Plus maybe, and then like the S11 Note comes out in the summer. But Samsung release way more phones than the three flagships they release every year. They release like all these other phones with like for the budget end and the mid range and all different kinds of people who have different financial situations, who have different needs. And it's the same with PC. You can buy like an Nvidia RTX 2080 Ti if you're like super duper rich, but you can also get like one of the lower end cards, like I don't know, like a RX 5700 or something. That's like 300 quid, and you can play like on like one of those cheaper AMD chip GPUs. You can play games pretty well at HD, even though they're like much cheaper than your 2080 Ti. And that's the beauty of the PC ecosystem, is that no matter what your financial situation is, to a degree, you can get upgrades for your computer in perpetuity if that is your preference. And the same thing is going to be like for next gen. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Sony too doesn't eventually follow suit. You know, and things like, well, why aren't we making a SKU for people who maybe don't want to splash £500 or whatever, however much it's going to be? Don't know if it's £500. But that's the beauty of x86 development. You know, it's supposedly easier. And I ain't a game dev. I ain't a game dev. You know, full disclaimer. But it's just not like it used to be. You know.
Yeah, and Gotham Guy in the super chat says, wasn't there a rumor not long ago that Sony was coming out with 2 SKUs as well for next gen? Whether or not it's true, I didn't hear any negativity at all. There was a Japanese reporter that did say Sony was going to have 2 SKUs. Now, he didn't specify if it was at launch or if it was like Sony was planning a mid-gen upgrade at some point. But yeah, that was a rumor. And showing, he says, Microsoft finally flexing its biggest gun, which is money. So, like, Lockhart also makes sense. I know a lot of people, won't like this, but they're going to put that into xCloud, the blades. One of the biggest complaints with xCloud right now is that games take too long to boot up, right? And there's something like 40 seconds to load up a game in xCloud, Jazz, or something like that.
Yeah, they're pretty damn slow. And not like and not just that, man. Like just games in general. Like Civ 6, for example, has the most atrocious load times I've ever seen in my life. Even running it off my SSD, you know, and it's bottlenecked by a USB 3.0 or whatever. But
so what they're gonna do is they're gonna put Lockhart blades into xCloud first, so that next gen games can be played, and that the games can load up quicker because it's gonna have an SSD and all that stuff. Before I think they put in Anaconda. I think at least that's the kind of thinking behind it. Like, yeah, right now it's just Xbox One S in the cloud because all you need to do is play 360 games. Then they'll put Lockhart in there, and then they'll eventually put Anaconda blades in there, right? And I know a little people are worried about the like the idea of Microsoft making their games available on all platforms. Like, we already know, like Halo Infinite, for example. This is another thing like people forgot about. Like, Halo Infinite was already announced for Xbox One, right? And I know that there are some people concerned that it's going to be hold back the Scarlett version, but it's like, have you seen like Gears 5 wasn't held back on the X because of the S version, right? And neither will Halo. But here's what I'm going to say is like, and me and Jez have had this discussion before on this podcast. There will be a point in time, I think a couple years into gen, where Microsoft stops making their games for Xbox One. There'll be a clear delineation where the games are only being made for next gen in mind. However, you'll still be able to play those games on your Xbox One X or your S through xCloud, because they're going to put xCloud on the console. And you notice I did a video that showed off how, like, when someone's playing a game like Star Wars, there's a little drop-down menu now where it says play Star Wars, and just talked about how in the future, when you're installing a game, you know, from a disc, maybe you can immediately start playing through xCloud until it's completely installed. But what's going to happen is, like, let's say, for example, let's spitball and get hypothetical here. Let's say Fable gets announced at E3 2020, and it's not coming out to 2022. That game, and I don't know if this is true, I don't even know if the game really exists, although, like, I'm pretty sure it does. Let's just say that game is Scarlett, or next gen only, so it's only going to run natively on Anaconda and Lockhart, and obviously on PC. But you'll still be able to play that game on Xbox One and Xbox One S, because you'll be able to stream it from xCloud to your console. That's how they're going to work that through. Am I wrong on this, Jez? Am I kind of like
nope,
on the wrong path? I fully believe that's exactly what's going to happen. Is that, you know, they're going to put xCloud on the consoles, and that's how they'll be able to say no console left behind, even though that was kind of misleading at a certain point. To, you know, I'm like, that is 100% what I think is going to happen. I don't know. Do you have anything to say about that? Do you agree, Jez? Like, do you have a?
there are scenarios that xCloud enables that we can't even envisage yet, because the ability to stream your games from anywhere creates all sorts of weird possibilities that you don't even think about, like, being able to stream from other people's consoles. You'll stream your friends' games to your console, or play local co-op games in the cloud. I think Steam literally just started doing something like that. There's loads of scenarios that not even been imagined yet as a result of this stuff coming in. And that's what disruption is. And people freak out about it, and they can freak about it. But at the end of the day, change is inevitable, and the more cash that's going to developers, the better games will be made, theoretically. Anyway, that's the idea. I mean, it's funny, we talk about like Resident Evil 2 and 3 being remade from the ground up. Like if you go back and look at like what Resident Evil 2 looked like in the 90s and compare it to like what came out this year, like there's the gap in technology is so damn big. And I'm excited for the industry moving forward. I'm not interested in things staying as they are. I want those experiences. I want to be able to play my games everywhere. I want games to get bigger and better, and I want them to get faster. I want to be able to play them with instant loading speeds and all that sort of stuff. And the things that we just ignore right now, like the 2 or 3 minute load times in Civ, all that stuff will just be like, in 10 years we will just kind of feel like, oh, that was so long ago. Can you remember that time when we used to have to wait for games to load? Can you remember that, Rand?
Yeah.
I
Also,
like this stuff.
Lockhart, rumored also to be a discless Xbox, right?
Now that's an interesting point. Like if Lockhart's all about saving
Which
money,
I think it is.
that,
Yeah.
dropping the disc drive, let's presume shaves $50 off the
I would
price,
say
because
more,
that's,
probably $20, but okay.
well, it shaved $50 off the RRP of between the S and all digital, right?
Okay, yeah, sure. You can look at it like that, yeah.
I mean, like even if it only shaves 20 off of Microsoft, like maybe people value the disk drives today, maybe. But the thing that we didn't expect is that the Xbox All Digital was the number one best-selling SKU in the UK during Black Friday. And yeah, the deals were insane. Like you could get, like, I think Tesco had like Xbox One S All Digital for £120, which is about, I don't know, $150, $60, give or take, something like that. That was a good deal, and people liked it, which Microsoft will take that as evidence that people are happy to drop the disk drive if the price is right, you know. And clearly people value a disk drive more than $50. But I think, like, from a point of view of human behavior, people are ready to ditch the disk drive if the price is right. So I think, like, maybe they will drop the disk drive, and they'll probably be encouraged by the fact that the all digital did sell well over Black Friday.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's
Um,
like I think Lockhart is obviously Microsoft's attempt to kind of go into next gen with the cheap entry point price, which you basically the start of every generation is it's all premium. You're paying $400 or $500 for it. But what if somebody
yeah.
came in there and was like, no, you can play next gen games, but it's $300? Because for this whole thing to work, for this whole two SKU strategy, for it all to work, it needs to be a big difference between both in the first place, which if you're looking at like the specs of both, it sounds like it is. Like you're talking about like 4 teraflops
That's
to a minimum like a 10 or 11, like a faster clock speed on Anaconda, more RAM, all that stuff, right? So if you're looking at it like that, but then the price, it cannot be just $100 difference. So that's why for me, for this to work, Anaconda has got to be $500, and Lockhart cannot be a cent over $299. Like that's the only way in this mind this whole strategy works, is that it is a huge difference in price, because we talked about the SAD, right? We talked about the Xbox One. You just mentioned biggest selling console, Black Friday, all that stuff. I even saw Benji Sales tweeted about today how if the sales of SAD keep up, it might actually outsell the PlayStation this month, right? For December, because of how well it sold on Cyber Monday. The thing is, price is so important. Price is probably the most important thing, right? And like we said, the SAD was too expensive at $250. It's too expensive. Who would get, like that? That is, but we always did say as soon as it got down to 150, that's impulse buy territory for a lot of people, and it's proven to be true. Like $150, 99 euros, blah 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 blah. It's kind of bearing itself out because the people buying consoles now necessarily are the people buying them later. But if you get
the perception of savings creates an impulse buy. Like when the SAD came out, it was hammered because it was only $50 cheaper than the RRP of a regular S, and then Amazon had sales on the S that existed that made it the same price as the all digital. So the perception of saving wasn't there. It was just like, oh, I'm losing a disk drive and gaining nothing. But like it's less about the gulf. It's less about the price as much as the perception that you're saving, I think. So that's why like having a big gulf between the price points of maybe not even between Lockhart and Anaconda, but Lockhart and the base PS5 SKU, like even having a significant amount of savings between those consoles could be beneficial for Lockhart. And but then like you get the perception that like Anaconda must be so much on the other end of that psychological marketing spectrum. You get the perception that Lockhart is the premium tier thing, and mobile phone companies do this all the time. Apple has like the iPhone 11, iPhone Pro SKU now, which is ridiculously priced. But that's the SKU all the influencers want, and that's the SKU that reviewers review, and that's the SKU that drives a halo over the brand. Is the higher end model. Nobody writes about the lower end model, even though it's the one that will sell in volume. So there is a marketing play to this whole thing that is probably something that could be explored in more detail, and someone more qualified than me could probably dig into. But
well, it's like that's what I'm saying. Like the price needs to be cheap enough, and also the gap needs to be wide enough where Anaconda's the best version because it's $200 more expensive than Lockhart. And Lockhart, but the difference is you also have to get people who normally wouldn't go in at 500 to think, all right, at 300, I'm in day one. And then you bundle it, especially if it's got no disk drive. So like every purchase on that console, Microsoft knows it'll be getting back like basically through their own store. Because it can't play disc, so you can't go buy it from GameStop. You can't buy it from Best Buy. Everything will be digital. So maybe like the thing here is that I'm trying to get at is like that needs to be wide enough because the apparent advantage of Anaconda has to be apparent, but also has to be cheap enough for people to be like, all right, I'm gonna get on Lockhart and I'll give up the disk drive for it, and at the same time. Well, I kind of lost my train of thought there, Jazz. Help me out. I had a point I was trying to make with all this stuff, and I just completely lost it. But I think what I was trying to get at is like I think Microsoft has a problem with they always mark things up too high. Like we said from the jump, SAD was too expensive at $250, and we were right because it wasn't selling. Suddenly it gets down to $150, and now it's flying off the shelves. So my fear is that they're going to price Anaconda at $500, and probably because that's the price it needs to be, right?
But like again, this is like audience manipulation again. It's kind of like, can they get away with, because they know that a lot of Xbox users are locked in. Do they sell it as a higher price to get people like us to buy on day one, and like drive that sort of traffic and stuff like that? Because maybe they're happy with the install base they've got now, and they're thinking like it's not going to grow anyway, so let's just sort of,
if that's the case, they wouldn't bother with Lockhart. I don't think, because Lockhart's not for the day one Xbox buyers. It's clearly
Lockhart has to exist because of xCloud too. There's that whole angle as well, because like if xCloud's going to benefit, if xCloud does blow up xCloud needs to benefit from the the faster I/O ports on the next gen systems, because like you say, it takes ages for an xCloud game to spin up right now, and like even like to start with, it's a little bit laggy to start with, and then it gets going and all this. I don't know how it works. It's black magic, but like to start with, like an xCloud game, like it spins up and then it has a few little issues to start with, and then it runs fine. Like it's almost like it has to warm up a bit. I don't know if what that's to do with like loading or storage or something like that, but it's certainly something that I believe would be helped with faster I/O ports on storage. That will only come with Lockhart, and there's no point bundling Anaconda into a server rack if no one can take advantage of 4K 60 frames on their phones. There is literally no point in it. Like even like 1440p 60 frames ain't something that I think most people are going to get out of their phones in the near term. I think like 4K 60 for game streaming realistically is at least 10 years out. I would personally probably believe, if we're even still here in 10 years because of World
Yeah,
War
no, I
Three.
know you always say that. I know
So like
it's like, well, but you also don't factor in the PlayStation 5 in all this, because that's kind of the wild card here, in my opinion. Because if the rumors are true and it's the same thing as Scarlett, just maybe either slightly better or slightly worse, what if they undercut Anaconda and sell it for 400? And then you have Sony sitting pretty at
500,
the
400, 300.
yeah, 300, 400, 500, which is what I've always thought since kind of like the beginning, when all this information first came out, like in 2018, right? Was
It's
that
it's it's
that was how it's gonna
it's neat and tidy. It's neat and tidy, that theory.
that's sure, but like if PS5 is just as powerful as Anaconda, but it's $100 cheaper, but then the gap between Lockhart and PS5 is it's only $100, but the jump between the power threshold is pretty big. That could be essentially a problem for Microsoft. Is that it's like the PS5's in that Goldilocks zone where it's like the right amount of power and the right amount of price with the right amount of games, or the right type of games or whatever. Like, so to me it's like for Microsoft, I think Microsoft wants it to be $500 for both Anaconda and Lockhart, or Anaconda and PlayStation 5, and then $300 for Lockhart, and they can be and they'll be okay with losing money on Lockhart because, like I said, it's a console without a disc drive, so every single purchase on that console is either going to come through Game Pass, which is a subscription service that people are stuck into for years, or a digital purchase from their own stores, so they'd be more willing to take a loss on that. Plus, they can has a dual purpose with them throwing it up into the cloud, for people to play next gen games, right? At least quicker.
Yeah. It's a weird gen, crossing over, because like we talked about, people are locked in digitally and stuff like that. Like PlayStation 5 isn't even on my radar. I own 5 PlayStation games digitally, and I'm sure I'll buy a PlayStation 4 game, sorry. I'm sure I'll buy a PlayStation 5 eventually, but it's not like I'm spending a lot of time on my Switch because it has such a vast differentiation against Xbox and PlayStation, in the fact that like my girlfriend comes in and says, "Can I use the TV?" I'm like, "Sure," and I'll rip the game out of the dock and I'll carry on playing it like in bed or something like that. Like I'll be able to do that with Xbox and PlayStation in the future thanks to streaming, but like right now it's just so much more convenient. Like so the Switch is like has its niche, and I'm hoping that Nintendo sticks to that niche because they do it so damn well.
Yeah.
But like, but what is the differentiation going to be between PS4 and PS5, sorry, and Scarlett? What is the systemic differentiation going to be? Because right now, like I'm looking at my PS4 and my Xbox One X right next to each other. They're both black slabs, like basically just game consoles sitting there. And the only real big differentiation between them for me is that I own 600 games on Xbox and I own games on my PlayStation, just because I'd already started buying digital games on the 360, and I just sort of got locked into that ecosystem anyway.
I mean,
And
content's going to be the differentiation. I mean, for Sony, they're going to be like, we got, Spider-Man 2 coming, and we got, this exclusive and this exclusive. For Microsoft, it's going to be the same. Like, we got all these games from Xbox Game Studios, but then Game Pass, where you can play these games for cheap. So you can essentially play more games for cheaper. And we have this option. That's what it's going to come down to, at least at launch. I mean, let's be honest. Like, the only people buying the PlayStation 5 and the Anaconda at $500 or $400 at launch is the hardcore anyways. Right? You're not really getting into the mass market and later. Like, the people buying systems today aren't the audience that's going to be buying them next year. But we do have a question from Basement Radio Arcade Podcast, Mr. Enrique. He says, Microsoft tried 2 SKUs at launch with the 360. The core system, 20 gig hard drive, one was $299 and $399. The core model didn't sell well. The PS3 did the same. It was $499 and $599. And
that they actually had, like, PS3 had, didn't the more expensive system have backwards compatibility as well?
They both did. And then they removed it, or maybe it was just the more expensive one. But I know all I want to say all PS3 versions did have back compat, and then they removed them. But here's the thing, Enrique. I think it's because the price differential and what you're getting wasn't enough. So $100 difference isn't really enough for a lot of people, especially when you're talking $300 and $400. Now, that's where I think Microsoft could be in a potential, like, this whole Lockhart Anaconda thing might be great, because $200 is a lot. $300 to $500. Especially with the differences in those, the systems, because let's face it, the PS3 60 gig and 20 gig were essentially the same system. The only thing different about it was the storage. Same thing with the Xbox 360 Arcade. No hard drive and a hard drive. The systems were virtually identical. You were just paying for more storage space. But with this, one system's way more powerful and does way more things. So, like, the pricing has to reflect that. So when you're looking, like, me and you and everybody listening to this podcast, we're going to get the $500 Anaconda or whatever it's going to cost, because that's what we want, right? The $299 one is for maybe someone who would get it a little bit later, but it's like, maybe I'll get it now. That's who that's for. And so I see it working because of those differences. This isn't just $100 for a hard drive upgrade. It's like a whole bunch more. But like I said, to me, it only works if they can kind of properly get across how much more powerful Anaconda is and what you're actually saving with the $200 to get the cheaper version. Now, that might be a challenge for Microsoft, Jez, because what has been the one thing that they've kind of kicked themselves in the ass this entire generation? Marketing and messaging. That is a big problem. And if you're going to launch both those consoles at the same time, which there's even talk that it may not happen at the same time, they need to be on their A game with this. You can't stumble out of the gate, especially when you're going up against, the PlayStation 5 at the same time. You need to have your message loud and clear and firm. You need every executive needs to be on the same page. You can't be going out and be like, well, there are no more exclusives, and then have Cream Chowdy be like, well, we're looking into getting exclusives for xCloud. It's like, well, what are you talking about? Like, everybody needs to be on the same page. The message needs to be insanely clear, and it could work. But this is Microsoft. They really have proven to me that their messaging and marketing has improved whatsoever this entire generation, so we'll see how that goes. Jackal with the Super Chat says, Game Pass might be the cushion that allows Microsoft to sell Anaconda at a loss for less than $500. Maybe, potentially. I guess it really depends. That's kind of like, man, like I look at the PlayStation, I'm just like, Sony's gonna, like, what they're offering, it's like, it's got to be $500, and then it's like, but I don't know, like, maybe it's $400. And Enrique says, I agree, Rand, pricing has to reflect. PS3 pricing was terrible. By the way, PC Master Race, can't wait for xCloud on PC. Love Game Pass on PC. Oh, I know you're all about the PC life these days. So, and Gunstar with Super Jazz says, what controller changes for next gen? Methinks heart monitor and mic. Jazz, do you have any info on changes for the controller? I mean, we
I
know.
have no idea if they're going to change the controller vastly. I do know that all your current accessories are going to work. So like if you've got like Astro A50 $300 headset, that's going to work on the next gen consoles. Like all the APIs that are there today, they're going to be ported over. So like your Elite, Series 2 Elite, that's going to work too. I don't know what new features they could bake in.
I
I
mean, there
mean,
has to be a capture button on it.
God, you'd hope so,
I mean,
right?
it has to. Like Nintendo has one, for Christ's sake.
What is that? What's that supposed to
I
mean?
mean, Nintendo has a feature on their like for their sharing and stuff. Like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
it
but
has to.
what you saying it like it's a shock that Nintendo
I'm just
has
saying,
one.
like Nintendo. Well, I know
Can
the
you,
Switch came
Ryan?
out later, but
Can you stop bullying Nintendo, please?
I'm just saying, like, if
I'm getting triggered.
Nintendo's doing something along sharing video content that Microsoft isn't, like, that controller needs to
Yeah.
have a button dedicated to taking screenshots and taking video clips.
Hell yeah,
As
it
far as
does.
whatever else it's going, I mean, I don't know, but they've also said all your controllers are going to work on everything. So like, I have an Elite V2, I'll use that for a while until the Elite V3 comes out, which James will probably be like, the Elite V3, it'll be purple and have a share button. Ship it, and they'll sell for $190, right? um, so the other thing I wanted to talk about was VR, because Phil made a statement about VR, which, whew, man, you would think he said that he was never making consoles again with the way people reacted. But before we get to that, JD Gamer has a super chat. He says, if Microsoft can make the Lockhart $299, 8 teraflops, 16 gigs of memory with the SSD, while the Anaconda is 12 to 14 teraflops with double the memory, then I think it could put pressure on PS5 even at $399, but it's all marketing. I think you're too high on Lockhart. I don't think Anaconda is going to come anywhere close to 12 or 14 teraflops. Maybe at the high end at 12, but I guess I don't know. It depends on the scale you're looking for. Like, I don't know. It all depends. Like, I'm sure we'll get specs here soon, since Microsoft sent out the dev kits. So we'll find out sooner or later. But VR, the way people reacted was interesting for a device and like that doesn't really see a lot of people owning it, whether it's PSVR or Oculus or any of those others. Like I said, you would have thought Phil said we're not making another console, everything is streaming, the way people reacted to it.
Yeah, like for we need to put this into context for the VR stuff first. MPD analysts have said repeatedly that the total VR spend, and that includes games, that includes hardware across all VR platforms, is similar to a rounding error in a sheet. It's that small. That's what MPD says about VR.
Yeah.
So the a lot of the people who get mad about the VR stuff, the chances are statistically they don't even own it. So take
Right.
that as you will.
Well, okay. So here's the thing. I think also he is getting crap because, well, let's face it. He went on stage at E3 2016 and said VR was coming to Scorpio, right?
Yep.
I mean, this was before Sony announced PSVR, because they didn't announce it till October of that year. So Phil himself on stage saying that Scorpio would have premium VR content, and I think it would have if VR became huge. Like, I think they thought VR was going to become essentially a huge market that they needed to be in, and when it became apparent that it wasn't going to be, they're like, yeah, we're not doing this, right? So it was for monetary things. But his statement is, I think it's one of the worst ones he's made. Because as me and you have discussed, sometimes it's more about how you say it than what you say, right? So he says that he has some issues with VR, that it's isolating, and he thinks of games as communal, right? Kind of together experience. And he says he's responding what their customers are asking for, and nobody's asking for VR. I think that comment really pissed people off because
that kind of like it dismisses the people that are asking for
exactly,
it,
and people are asking for VR because I get asked it all the time. Hey, is VR coming to Xbox? And the thing is Microsoft broached the idea first to the Xbox user base about VR. They're the ones. Phil
They have a
himself.
VR division, for God's sake.
Well, I know Phil was the one who came out and said, "Hey, we're going to bring premium experiences to VR." Before any Xbox gamer was asking for VR, he said it was coming. In 2015, we had to sit through that HoloLens demo. Granted, it's AR, but still, we had to sit through that HoloLens AR demo where people were like, "Oh my god, oh my god!"
Don't talk about that.
Right?
We don't talk about Minecraft Earth anymore.
But people forget about that. So it's like, so obviously he says nobody's asking for VR. He's not saying zero people are asking for it. It's obviously just, you know exactly what he's mean. Like, he just says not enough people are asking for it. But here's the thing, when you say stuff like that, when you say nobody's asking for VR, you get people throwing stuff back in your face. Because, let's face it, people could come and be like, "Hey, did anybody ask you to launch Xbox One X with just Super Lucky's Tale? Hell, did anybody ask for Super Lucky's Tale? Did anybody ask for Mixer to sign Shroud and Ninja? Did anybody ask for Battletoads to come back with that graphical style?" Like, you can keep on going on and on about things nobody's asked for. You know what I'm saying? That's the issue. Like, he set himself into that, right? And then he said and then he kind of even contradicts himself in the next statement. He says the vast majority of our customers know if they want a VR experience, there's places to go. So he already says, like the customers know that if they want VR, go to somebody else. You know what that reads like to me? That's a Don Matrick quote, Jez. I'm sorry. The first time I read that, I thought to myself, that's Don Matrick with Jeff Keighley. When Jeff Keighley was like, "What about people on subs?" And Don Matrick's like, "Hey, if you need internet, we got a console for you." Except Phil's basically saying, which I guess you could say maybe he's being truthful, and he's just being blunt. He's like, "We're not doing VR, and if you want VR, like, you can go get it over there." Like, I don't, like, you're basically telling people, go get this thing from somewhere else. I don't know. I thought it was one of his worst interviews, or at least quotes. Now, of course, I haven't, like, seen audio for it. Maybe it comes across differently. Maybe, there's more winks and nods there or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, text can kind of be hard to parse what people truly mean. But just looking at that comment, I'm just like, I don't know about this. This is pretty bad. Of course, people are asking for VR.
I like.
Remember when I said Crackdown, I said all those bad things about Crackdown, and people threw me under the bus, and like, people were pissed at me. You told me that it's not about what you say, it's about how you say it, right? That there was a better way I could have gotten my issues out with the game, right?
Yep.
And I think the same situation here with Phil. There's a better way to say what he wanted to say than how we said it. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like, listen, with our investment in first party and with Scarlett, we'd rather focus our, time and money into creating great experiences for Xbox gamers. And unfortunately, VR is not in the cards for Xbox Scarlett anytime soon, but never say never. You know what I mean? There's a better way to go about it. And then you don't have to tell people that, like, by the way, you don't need, like, if you want VR, go get it somewhere else. Like, what? Come on. I don't know.
I think, like, yeah, if it said, like, we'd rather invest the money in first party right now and stuff like that, like, it wouldn't have gone over so bad. But I think I liked is it Yoshida who said, sometimes we make things that nobody's asking for.
Yeah.
I really like that comment, and I get that he's got to say that because he's defending PlayStation VR and stuff. But that's the thing about innovation. Like, you have to do things nobody's asking for. Nobody asked for a laptop with a detachable keyboard with a kickstand that had a touchscreen and a pen. Nobody asked for that. No, nobody in the world asked for that. But, like, Surface is now a $2 billion business, and they completely, even Apple copied the Surface with the iPad Pro. Like, nobody in the world asked for that, and they innovated and they made it work. They iterated and stuck with it, and now Surface is a successful business, and they're doing, like, they're pretty much leading the way for innovation in the PC space. Nobody asked for that Surface. Nobody asked for it. And I know Phil uses Surface Pro, so
You know,
you know, and
he shouldn't even said anything. He's just like, we're not talking about VR. Just
but that but
avoid it completely. Like, because
that's the thing though. I'm not a fan of VR for two reasons right now. It makes me sick.
true.
Right. I played like VR. I've got a VR headset. I've got a, it's a crappy one, but I've got a HP WMR headset, and it's not the best headset in the world, I know, but I've got one, and I played Minecraft VR, and honestly, I have to say, I really loved the experience of, you know, mining in VR. It was a really cool experience, like running around slashing the zombies with like my hands, and not only that, but the fact that it synchronized my Xbox game world to VR as well. It was just so cool. The fact that I could experience Minecraft in another perspective was so cool. But the problem is, Rand, my God, I've been seriously drunk. I'm British,
Mm-hmm.
and that is kind of what we do. That's what we do in Britain. We drink hardcore style. I've been like on the verge of alcohol poisoning, and still think Minecraft VR made me feel more sick than like a liter of neat whiskey has made me feel sick. It's just that bad for me. And people said to me on Twitter, "Well, just take some Dramamine, or take some
Yeah.
anti-sickness pills." And it's like, I don't want to have to take pills to play a game. Like the most I'll play, I'll maybe drink a coffee if I'm gaming when I'm tired, or maybe like have a sip of whiskey if I want to calm my nerves a bit to play Call of Duty or something. But I ain't gonna take Dramamine, so I ain't sick playing VR. But it's not just that, Rand. You need a huge play space for it, and like I just the houses in Europe, like unless you're mega rich, the rooms just ain't that big. The biggest room in our house is the living room downstairs. I ain't gonna take my razor blade downstairs and plug in my VR headset and flail around like while my family laughs at me and stuff like that. It's like it's just kind of awkward. So like then there's all these sort of weird issues with VR that Microsoft could solve, I feel like. Microsoft has the ingenuity, the technology, and the money to solve these problems and help drive that industry forward. So, like, yeah, maybe no one's asking for it, but I would honestly like to see Microsoft care a little bit more. And they've solved some of this stuff already. Like they put the Kinect technology into the WMR headsets so that you don't need tracking beacons. Like the HTC Vive has to have these tracking beacons so it can track, or at least the older versions did. Like it had to have these beacons so it could track where the headset was. Microsoft put the tracking inside the headset with the cameras and the GPS, accelerometers and all that sort of stuff. I don't know the full technical details of it, but they put the room scanning technology in the headset, and now like a bunch of other headset people have done that as well, and that's helped VR take a step forward. Microsoft can afford, and they have the technology to help solve some of these problems. So when Phil says like, yeah, we don't want to, and I love Phil, but like when it's just sort of disappointing, that Microsoft doesn't want to try, especially considering like people like Alex Kipman in Microsoft are so passionate about VR. They have all the cards in play, just like they just don't do it for some reason, and the only reason they've got right now is because no one's buying it. But
Yeah. Well, so Daniel J says, isn't Microsoft releasing a phone next year? Which the Andromeda, right, Jez, or whatever.
yeah,
That is? Yeah.
Microsoft's releasing an Android phone
They're
next year.
releasing an Android phone. Enrique says nobody asked for Fan and Dust with original assets. And Dreadpool says they're using an excuse why they bought an X. So here's the thing: I have VR. I have a PSVR. I actually quite like it. I enjoyed Moss. I've enjoyed what little I played of Astrobot. I played some other games on it. I like VR. I like the experience. I was a doubter before I got my hands on VR.
So was I.
Problem is, I'm kind of like you. It it gets me sick. I can't play it for long. I get like motion sickness, so it's like I don't feel good. And when I don't feel good, when I want to play video games to be entertained and feel great, right? So like when I strap on I strap on the visor, and it's just so confining, and you get all these wires running down your like off the bat into the back, and I'm just like, to me, it's like VR is like, oh man, a wireless headset would be absolutely amazing, and maybe even like something like, if in the future, obviously like super future, like just a pair of glasses or whatever, right? So I agree with Phil that's limiting, but like the thing is, I kind of want VR on Xbox, not necessarily for myself, but because like I don't like I'm not saying Microsoft needs to make their own headset. Like they have a bunch of headsets already that work with Windows 10, and I don't know why they just don't allow those to work, or strike up a deal with Oculus to
it's
get that
funny,
to work.
Rand, you can actually plug a Windows mixed reality headset into an Xbox. You can actually do it. But it comes up with like a warning and says, "I see what you're trying to do there. Sorry, this is not supported." Because the Xbox has the fucking APIs for it. Because it's just Windows 8 and Windows 10 APIs in the Xbox. It has the APIs there. There's no reason why they couldn't just allow UWP VR games to run on Xbox. There's literally no reason. Like Arizona Sunshine is one of the best VR games out there. It's a zombie shooting game, and like it's one of the few games that don't make me sick because like you can always see the horizon, which I'm told is important for alleviating motion sickness. Like that's why Arizona Sunshine has like these wide open spaces, and it's got like tank controls. So it's more like an on rail shooter where you can control where you are on the rail, kind of. And like Arizona Sunshine, as a result, I've had a lot of fun playing that game, and it's on UWP, which means they could bring it to Xbox relatively easily, and those APIs are there. So theoretically, I should just be able to plug in my HP headset straight into my Xbox and play it. But it's kind of like I get why they don't do it. It's like they want it to be a good experience. They want lots of content there and stuff like that. But they've allowed mouse and keyboard on Xbox and barely done anything with it.
Did anybody ask for mouse and keyboard on Xbox, Jazz?
Exactly.
If we're going down,
Exactly.
we're going down. So that's the thing. Like that's why I think the whole Phil Spencer no VR thing or whatever. It was just like he said it wrong. It was how he said it, not what he said. Sure, maybe it's disappointing for VR fanatics who want it to be on the platform. Like I get it. Like I like VR. I would love for it to be on Xbox, even though I probably
honestly,
wouldn't use it that much. But like, here's also the other thing. And shout out to Enrique for the other super chat. He says challenge with VR is it's a peripheral, and that's true. Is that oh god, what? And I lost my train of thought because I was looking at chat. Is that what was I just saying, Jez? I said
you're talking about you want VR to be there for the fanatics and stuff like that.
um oh yeah, is that Microsoft, they build themselves, and I've talked about this before about options,
Choice.
choice, options, choice, and options are good. And I always kind of felt it only kind of flows one way, from the console to everywhere else, but never back to the console. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially with PC. You brand yourself that, but you don't want VR when like you said, maybe you could easily implement VR. It's kind of like, man, like I said, not really good optics, not really good message. But that's kind of my whole thing on VR. I'd love for it to be on Xbox. I think I don't. It's not a gimmick. VR is not a gimmick. I do obviously agree with like Phil and like Matt Piscatella of MPD, where there's like basically the market's so small and tiny that's the reason why. And I do think people are asking for it. I think the way Phil said that whole comment, it could have been worded a lot better. And I think that's part of the reason why people freaked out, because everybody talking about that on Jez, on Twitter, Jez, might have been literally everybody that owned VR, because it sure seemed like it, because it was just like it was just like, oh my god, it's not having VR, I'm not getting Scarlett. You weren't never getting Scarlett anyways, whether it's supported it or
I might
not,
write
you weren't
about
getting it.
Yeah, I might write about this next week because, like, thinking about it now, like Minecraft VR was incredible. It's an awesome experience, but my God, man, like it made me feel so ill. I really want that experience to work. I want it to be good, and I was thinking like, how cool it'd be on HoloLens, because like at least in HoloLens you can see straight through the headset, and you can see out the other end, and when you're using HoloLens, there's no sensation of sickness because you can see everything around you anyway. So there is technology to solve this stuff, and if they can solve this stuff, it would create another cool experience for gaming and stuff like that. And I get that we've asked Phil Loud to bring back IP and make a new IP and stuff like that. I complain to Phil all the time, like, where's my Killer Instinct, and before then I complained, where's my Age of Empires 4,
Yeah,
and
all you do to like I've complained to Phil about certain stuff. I went to him after E3 and I let him know exactly how I felt about E3, and you know how I felt about E3. I didn't like it whatsoever. Like I gave him an earful about it. Like I was
yeah.
like, Phil, like, and it's like you watch the behind the scenes thing about how it's all put together, and but no, like whenever, yeah, I mean I don't bother the guy, but like if I
do.
feel like I'm very, I know you do, but
Sorry,
like
Phil.
when I feel very strongly about something, I'll talk to him about it. And after E3, we talked about their E3, and I talked about why I didn't like it. Oh, I thought they could do better and all this stuff, and I talked to him
Well,
yesterday
that's the
about some
thing
other things,
ultimately,
but
is like there's a lot of there's a lot to put it bluntly, there's probably a lot on his plate right now. There's a lot on all the
yeah, he
Xbox
just
teams.
screwed over Remedy. They're going out of business.
Oh, that's what they say on the internet. But it's not just that. It's like the expansion of this whole cloud platform across the entire world, and managing that stuff, and then you've got like all the games and the massive studio stable they've got now is and managing all that and making sure everything's running smoothly there, and then you've got like all the other teams and further acquisitions, and then all the annoying press people like me badgering him about stuff, and this is adding like VR into the mix would be a significant investment to Microsoft, and to make it work would probably be an even bigger investment.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they have those cards, and like I don't know if it's just Alex Kipman's passion. Like I don't if like for those who don't know, Alex Kipman is a Windows technical fellow who basically invented Kinect, and then he invented HoloLens, and he's a big advocate of VR. And it feels like he doesn't get the support from the Xbox and Windows teams that he probably should, and that if he did have the support, I think like VR could be a bigger deal at Microsoft and stuff like that, because there are benefits to it. And HoloLens landed a $1 billion contract with the US military, to augment soldiers' vision, So there's clearly things that can be explored here. Like maybe like Rand, I tell you, this is slightly off on a tangent, but no, I'm not suggesting Microsoft do this, but I saw that there's a farm in Russia, right, that are piloting VR headsets for cows.
Huh?
So,
What?
so they're piloting VR headsets for cows, so that the cows can think that they're in a better environment than they are.
Oh, I think I saw that. Yeah. So they're in like a better mood or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So like the cows sit there with a VR headset, and they might be in this tiny pen, but they think they're in this huge field or something like that.
Yeah.
And like
Okay.
there
Well.
are there are there are things to explore with VR that I would like Microsoft to do. But we've been on this for ages,
Well,
man.
yeah. So I'm gonna close it up here. So JD Gamer says look for VR and Xbox in 2022 or 2023 after the fifth gen of HoloLens is out and wireless VR tech improves. I think we're getting it then. And also, Jez, with Half-Life Alyx coming out, which by the way, oh my god, a new Half-Life game. Oh my god. Like, oh my god, new Half-Life game. But then again, fuck. I don't have
I don't
the
care.
V.
Like
Well, I
do
do
Half-Life
care because I want to play it,
VR.
and
No.
I'd rather play it not in VR. But like, I'm so excited that there's a new VR game. What if Microsoft is being a bit too short-sighted about VR? And obviously, this isn't probably going to happen. But what if VR takes off? And because VR, what if in this scenario, like in this scenario of things that Microsoft bet on, like let's just say Microsoft bet on game streaming, right? And they put all their chips in game streaming consoles, blah 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 blah. They removed their chips from VR, right? What happens if VR was the right bet, and game streaming isn't. And
Well, the good
Sony.
news is the Microsoft has those APIs, and they should be able to pivot.
Oh, so it'd be so really quick pivot to making Okay, so because you agree with me, right? That if suddenly VR became a huge market, that Microsoft would have VR on Xbox immediately, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
if the market demanded VR, then they would pivot to VR.
Yeah.
But like,
But you don't think that's the case?
right now, the evidence says no, and that's all Phil was saying. Is like the evidence says no. No one wants. No one. The thing is, I think people do want VR, but the restrictions to VR is what's stopping it proliferating. Those annoying cables. Like I completely forgot about the cables. Like I'm sitting there trying to mine in VR in Minecraft VR, and I can hear a creeper behind me, and I'm turning around, getting tangled up in the bloody cables, man. Like it's just dumb. And those are things that need to be solved because I
Yeah.
do want to VR, but I can't see how to fix VR because I am not a billion dollar corporation, trillion dollar corporation with the technology to solve those issues. I want VR. I just don't know how to get VR, and it should be on Microsoft to solve that issue,
All
I
right.
guess.
What about this? This will be the last thing before we wrap it up here. So you guys still hanging out? We appreciate everyone being here. Make sure you hit the like button if you enjoyed the podcast and subscribe to the channel. The other kind of bit of information that came out in Jason Schreer's article was that both Sony and Microsoft were terrified of Google entering the market. Terrified, I think, was the word he used. And that after the recent launch of Stadia, both Sony and Microsoft are just like, yeah, they laugh about it. Do you think that's true? I mean, I know that they
I
viewed Google as a big threat.
no, actually, my sources have always said to me that they've always said to me that Google is less of a threat than Tencent because Google doesn't have the content. Now, I genuinely thought that they were just sort of like, I don't know, putting a brave face on it. But it does seem like, but I honestly had no idea the content spread was going to be as bad as it was.
It's been horrible.
It's
It's
awful.
been
Like,
horrible.
and I thought like, okay, I was sitting here thinking, okay, they're gonna announce 5 new games every week. There's been nothing. It's like it's literally been dead on arrival. It's even worse than I ever could have expected, and in my wildest Google hating fever dreams, hoped for. Like it's been awful. So like, I think like I don't know. I don't know. The thing about Google is like it's not like the platform doesn't have a chance now because Google has so much power with their search systems, with YouTube, and like that whole like when you know that new button on the Xbox dashboard when you open
Mm-hmm.
a game and it says click here to play this game. Like Google can do that with YouTube, which has not tens of millions of people using it, but billions of people using it. So that is raw, unbridled power if they can get that positioned properly. But Google's having some upheaval of its own right now. Did you see that the two
Yeah, I did see
founders
that.
of
Yeah.
Google stepped down?
Yeah.
Larry Page is gone.
Mm-hmm. Uh huh.
Um, and that could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing, you know. Like maybe like the new CEO just thinks, you know what, all this Stadia stuff's just frivolous posturing. Let's just double down on the things we do well, you know, which is Satya Nadella's position, funnily enough. Like it's only because of Phil that Xbox still exists, probably.
I
Um,
mean, I would say more than probably.
yeah, you know, it's their mentality is let's do what works and not like struggle these uphill battles, you know. I'm surprised that like Surface stuck around as long as it did.
Well, I mean,
Because like one of the
I don't,
first things Satya did was shut down Windows Phone.
I don't think we can write off Stadia just yet. I think we need to see how it performs when the free version comes out. And when you can play it on multiple, like instead of just Google Pixel phones, when you can play it on all Android devices and on iOS
Yeah,
and like
I
all
tell
that
you
stuff before you can.
the thing that they got wrong, Ran, and you're totally right to say we shouldn't. But the thing they got wrong is calling it a release.
Sure, yeah. They
They
should have
should
called
have
it
called
beta.
it.
Yeah.
They should have called it better. Exactly what they're doing with Minecraft Earth, which I wrote a big scathing
I
article about
did.
last
Did you
week.
get any hate for that? Basically said Minecraft. What? Maybe we should talk about this in the next podcast about Microsoft's
Yeah,
monetization policies in their games because it's
yeah,
not
we
good.
should. Long story short, we'll talk about it more next week. But I wrote a huge scathing article about Minecraft Earth's monetization. Super excited for this game, but it has literally the worst kind of mobile time gating bullshit in it. And but the thing is that they basically wrote it off in a statement to me saying, "Oh, it's early access right now. We're taking feedback on." So like, I can't even like really commit to a review of Minecraft Earth because they can say, "Well, the game's not finished yet," and it's like xCloud. They've released it as an early access thing, so you're not reviewing the final product or whatever. Google's big mistake was calling this the final product because it's not even. It's worse than xCloud, which is a beta. So that's Google's big marketing mistake there, which you would have
You
thought
want to know?
someone at Google would have
I've
caught out.
I've come to the conclusion that Stadia is because I sat there for a long time and I thought to myself, who is this for? Because it's certainly not for like hardcore PlayStation guys, hardcore Xbox guys, or even hardcore PC guys. It all like Stadia, and I came to the realization that Stadia is for casuals because Stadia requires you to start over in a new ecosystem, and most people aren't willing to do that. PlayStation guys, like you mentioned before, PlayStation guys aren't going to drop PlayStation and come to Xbox. Maybe they'll use xCloud, because Microsoft enabled the DualShock. Maybe they'll play games like that. Maybe they have a PC and they'll play it that. Maybe they buy the cheap ass Lockhart. But like the idea is that they're going to be buying all their games, all their multiplats, everything on PlayStation, same as Xbox.
Well, it's
And
like
then the
they're
hardcore.
positioning it as Sorry, go on.
What was to say? Like the hardcore PC guys, like we have a few of them in chat. Like they're not streaming shit. They got a hardcore PC for a reason. Like they got a fucking 2080 Ti and shit in there for a reason, right? So I'm looking like, well, who is this for? And I realize like it's for casual gamers that think they're hardcore. It's for gamers out there who like think they're this hardcore gamer who like I play all these games, but who really don't play anything. So who for starting over in a new ecosystem doesn't really mean that much. Like for me, for instance, you guys know I play on Xbox. It's 99.9% of where I play. I own 1,900 games on here, right? I mean, I own
900 games.
I own 1,900 games.
Jeez.
On PlayStation, I own about 50. On Switch, I own about 4, right? Like, so I'm not switching. And the only way I would ever move to PlayStation full time, like all my games, is if Microsoft dropped out. And that was the only thing. I'm like, all right, I'll go on PlayStation. And I would imagine there's people on PlayStation that buy everything on PlayStation, and it's the same way, and same thing with PC. So I look at Stadia. It's a device for casual gamers who think they're kind of medium to hardcore, like who have deluded themselves in thinking that they're actually hardcore, and in reality they're just really casual. That they haven't, because imagine giving up everything to go into streaming. Like, and buying all the games that you already bought and playing them over. The thing is, like, nobody would do that. The only people who would
it's like,
are people who don't really have a big, library built up. So in my mind, Stadia is for casuals, but no casuals are going to jump on board a new product launch right away. So like they kind of screwed it all up. Go ahead. I just wanted to say that.
No, you're completely right. It is, they are trying to market it at people who aren't into gaming yet, really. They're actually positioning it at I've seen ads for Stadia on different subreddits, right? And you can tell because like when you on Instagram, you only get ads for things you're interested in, theoretically. Pictures you've liked or even looked at, because Instagram tracks how you scroll up and down the feed. So if I'm scrolling up and down a feed and I stop on Monster Hunter, it might offer me Monster Hunter toys in an ad because it knows that I stopped scrolling to look at Monster Hunter stuff. Reddit's different because Reddit doesn't provide data directly about what its users are doing, but instead, you know that everyone on the Xbox subreddit is interested in Xbox. Like you don't know their individual interests, but you know everyone on there is interested in that stuff. I've seen Stadia advertised on subreddits that are completely irrelevant to gaming. I saw Stadia ads on or for example, and or like AWW is just pictures of puppies and cats and kittens and stuff like that. Why would you put an ad for Stadia on that subreddit, which isn't anything to do with gaming? It's because they're going after people who aren't traditional gamers. They're going after people who may be more likely to play Candy Crush, trying to convert them into hardcore. And I think that's the completely wrong way to go about it. I think like what they should have done was they should have tried to position this as a supplementary service. Like I do most of my gaming on my Xbox, but I use my Switch as a supplementary console. They should have released this with like some kind of portable hardware that wasn't just a Pixel phone or something, and just said like this can supplement your PlayStation experience or supplement your Xbox experience or something like that. They should have tried to position it that way, but they can't even do that because it's a completely separate ecosystem. The advantages Sony and Microsoft have over Stadia are just immeasurable, and I don't
Yeah,
see how they conquer them.
I
I
mean,
don't
what
see how.
like exclusive games? Like, I know a lot of people are down on Microsoft's exclusive games, but they have 15 studios. I mean, they got a whole bunch coming out next year and a whole bunch for next gen. Google's got one studio that they're currently building. Who knows when they'll make that? Sony, they got their studios. I mean, you know, they put out Game of the Year candidates and Game of the Year winners. And it's like they're positioned. It's like you're going to have, like, with Xbox, you're going to have, like, the local experience, the hardware. And then if you want, they're going to have the streaming shit covered with xCloud. And you're going to be able to own your games. You're going to have a subscription service that gives you a whole bunch of games you'll be able to play on the go. It's like Google's really in a rough spot because, like, why, like me, like, I have all the systems because there might be a game I want to play on it. So I look at Stadia and I'm like, everything I can play in there, I can play on Xbox. So it would have to, they literally have to come out with an exclusive that I would want to play. And then maybe, and at that point, it's like, okay, well, you know what? Playing on Stadia is a much cheaper option than buying a new system. But at that point, it's like, is it going to be any good? And this is also like the whole rumor about Amazon coming in next year, that they're going to announce their involvement. It's like, same thing. Who's that for? Like, who's that? I know Amazon's like one of the biggest retailer in the world, but who's that for? Who's jumping over and starting over with Amazon? Right? Their studios have been seeing nothing but closures and games being canceled. Like, I don't know. Like, Sony
But
and
that's
Microsoft.
the thing. It's like it's so weird. Like all these different companies thinking they can do it just because they've got a cloud, and to the advantage of Sony and Microsoft is that they have the technology, but they've also got piles of content, and not only that, but piles of existing developer relationships that those companies just can't compete with. So
I mean, I feel bad for Albert Pinello then, because he's just working for something that's going to completely fail. He never should have left Xbox then, or went
Well,
to.
Albert Pinello, he works on Alexa. He doesn't work on gaming.
Yeah, sure. Like, I mean, we all knew Stadia was going to fail out of the gate when they hired Phil Harrison. Come on, right?
Oof.
But like, you can't really say Phil Harrison is, or Stadia's failed just yet. But anyways,
Yeah.
let's open it up for some questions before we get out of here. I know we went, we're over like 2 hours already because there's a lot to talk about. But I do want to thank everybody for tuning in to the show live. Jez will have this up in a day or two on Spotify and iTunes. We appreciate everyone who listens to us there. Sorry for the double upload yesterday. I think you accidentally put up
Oh yeah, my friend said to me, you didn't upload the last podcast, and I was like, oh crap, did I forget to upload the podcast? So like I thought that I forgot to upload the podcast, but it's just because we didn't do a podcast last week.
Yeah.
So I ended up uploading it twice, like a moron. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so hit us up with any questions if you have some, and we'll be sure enough to answer them. So yeah, I mean, I want to thank everybody who sent me tweets and messages about me being sick. I really appreciate it, and it's not been a fun week. There's a lot of videos I want to make, man, and I love making YouTube videos. It's just like what when you're not in the mood, and maybe you feel like this with writing, Jazz. If you're not in the mood to write, you just don't write, right? And it's the same thing as like I just
I
wasn't.
can't because I have to pay the bills.
Well, I know, but like I just was like, oh man, I just don't feel good, and like I wouldn't be able to bring the energy I normally
Well,
like
dude,
bring, and
like,
it's like, I just
yeah, I get that. Like that's why I don't make YouTube videos, because even if I feel crappy, I can still write. I don't have to. I can sit there being in a bad mood, and I can sit there like feeling terrible, but I can still type as long as my hands aren't killing me. But like YouTube and podcasts are different. Like you have to be energetic, and like so I feel really bad sometimes because I come on this podcast and I'm like really tired because I haven't slept properly. Like you can probably tell that I've slept properly today,
yes. Because
and like
normally you'd be
and I
like, I'm tired, but you didn't say anything today, so
yeah,
um
and like yeah.
yeah. So Thanaros wants to know: are xCloud beta only beta games coming to Game Pass? No. Currently, the games in xCloud are they in Game Pass, Jez? I'm pretty sure not all of them are, right?
I honestly don't know. I can't even check
No, because I know
because well, I could
Madden's
probably
not in Game Pass and it's on xCloud right
yeah,
now.
there you go then.
Yeah. Calorix wants to know any video on Pokemon Sword Shield review. Unfortunately, probably not. Here's the thing with the PlayStation, I can capture footage. They have a DVR. With the Xbox, I capture footage. The X has a great DVR. The Switch only allows you to capture up to 30 seconds. So I wouldn't really be able to. I'll give a final review when I finish the game on the podcast for sure, but I doubt I'll make an individual video. And I mean, because it's honestly, the video would be just kind of me complaining most of the time, or just saying over and over again, like, it's not for me. Like, it'd be like me reviewing Madden or NBA 2K20. Like I know going in.
I think basically they want to hear you hating it.
Yeah, but like
In a
I don't hate the game. I just find it boring, and I
you
know
feel
it's
that
not for me. So it's
feel
like I also feel like it's for 12-year-old kids. Uh,
wow.
I just there's no you know
Would
you
you enjoy
want
it more if it had Chivos?
no, it has nothing to do with achievements. I don't care about PlayStation trophies, and I enjoy their games just as fine, just as much. It has nothing to do with achievements or trophies. Which shout out, by the way, a buddy of mine who listens to the show. I've known him for a long, long time. Used to do the Gamerscore podcast with them. Piggymus Prime. I think he might have tweeted you the other day. He loves you,
Yeah, I
Jess.
saw that.
He's
I'm gonna follow.
he hit 1.9 million Gamerscore. He's on his way to 2 million. And he was
Wow,
like,
congrats to him.
yeah, it'd be great if you could talk about me on the show with the legend Jez. I'm like, yeah, Jez is a legend. He likes you.
Legend.
Yeah. So there was one, I forget
I don't
what
know about that.
I made fun of the UK one time, and he DM'd me. He was like, what? Yeah, I've known him a long, long time. He stayed in the achievement game after I got out of it. Like, I'm not in it anymore. Even though I put up 10,000 in like 4 days, I'm out of that. Like, I don't have time, and I don't want to do it anymore. A lot of games are just shit, and I just don't want to be just relegated to just playing those games, because to get that, to keep up in the race, quote unquote, that's all you got to play. But Pig's always been determined, and he's 1.9 million now, which is incredibly impressive. So hopefully he makes it through this episode and hears us talking about it. So let's see. There's also the thing about Halo Infinite, how their engine is like the most advanced ever. Did you see that, Jez?
Yep. Most advanced engine ever. Like,
Or
what does that mean?
Something like that.
What does
who
that
even
mean?
knows?
I tell you, man, if Halo Infinite doesn't have the flood, it's dead to me.
Well, I mean, like, Halo Reach is back. It came
Number
out
one on
huge,
Steam,
number
right?
one on Steam. That doesn't even include Game Pass. People playing on Xbox. It feels like Halo is coming back, and
Springboarding
Microsoft,
to a new era.
well, see, Microsoft needs to capitalize on this. Like Halo, like you finally get like the PC crowd into it, and they're loving it. Halo Reach. The next release is Halo 1, then Halo 2, then Halo 3, then ODST, then 4, right? And people are going to be continued to be excited. And it's like it's prime for Halo Infinite to just explode and be bigger than any Halo game since 3. Right? To get back to that point, especially with it being on Steam, on Game Pass, new console launch, on the old consoles, on mobile, via xCloud, all that stuff. 343 has to nail this game. Like they
needs
they
a flood,
have
man.
to. They have
Needs
to.
a flood.
Well, the flood, I think, will definitely be there. But they have to, Jazz. Like, you can't, because if they don't, then this is the last best chance for Halo. This is it, in my opinion. I'm not saying they'll stop making them. I'm saying this is it. Like, this is... People wondered if Halo could ever get back to the glory days of, last generation. And I've always kind of thought, nah, that time has passed. But with them doing what they're doing with PC and how that's been embraced and all that stuff, like, and if they can make that game amazing, then Halo Infinite and Halo as a franchise could see a resurgence once again. But the game needs to be great.
It's really funny, like, looking on some of the PC-oriented subreddits, it's like people are they're using Halo Reach to attack the Epic Game Store. It's like, yeah, look, the Epic Game Store's got this and this and this, but we've got Halo Reach on Steam. It's like, it's just funny seeing like Halo being held in such a high regard amongst like, the hardcore crowd of gamers and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think like it's not so, even if like they don't fully nail the story, if they fully nail the multiplayer, like, the stories can be fixed, and like Halo 5 story wasn't that great, yeah, stuff like that. But I think it's the multiplayer that helps Halo explode, like Halo Combat Evolved changed Halo 2 as well. It just coupled with Xbox Live, it really changed the way we experience games online and stuff like that. I don't know. It's got a huge legacy to live up to.
Yeah.
It's tough when a game gets so old.
They're also gonna have to release those pretty quick, because I would imagine they want all of them out before Infinite drops. So I would imagine Halo 1's got to come out in February, and then 2's got to be out in April, and then 3's got to be out in June, and then ODST's got to be out in like August.
Do you honestly think they're gonna release them that quickly?
But the whole, like, they have to. Like,
Why?
Because in my opinion, I don't think you want to release. Well, I guess, okay. I don't think most people care for 4. I think people want all of them up to 3. So, like, as long as 3's out,
I like 4
before the other 2, then sure. But I would imagine that Microsoft wants them out. But I think they want everything to be about Halo Infinite, launching on Steam, not having the Master Chief Collection take away from it. You know what I mean? So
I get what you're saying, but like, I don't think they want to commit to an arbitrary launch cycle. They always say like, we want to get this right,
Sure.
and stuff like that. I honestly don't think that they're gonna nail the whole thing before Infinite.
I mean, as far as I know, like, Reach was supposed to come out months and months and months ago, and more than likely, Halo 1 was probably supposed to launch this fall.
Well, it's difficult. There's loads of weird engine and
Sure.
there's issues with like when we played it at XO19, Matt Brown, my colleague, did. He said like mouse scrolling didn't work to switch weapons, which is weird for a shooter. And also there's a bug now where you can't crouch and move at the same time with the WASD. Like, it's weird. There's like loads of like weird little issues and anomalies because the game was just not designed for PC.
Yeah.
So it's like they have to navigate all these little tiny little problems and all these little lines of code and making all that work in like sorry, modern architecture and stuff. It's not a simple process. Like no games really attempt this sort of backporting stuff with like unified playlist system, and it's actually unprecedented.
Yeah.
But it's it's cool that they're trying it.
I agree. I don't know. I just can't see them being like, here's Halo Infinite, get ready, guys, Steam, Xbox, and be like, but also here's Halo 3. It's like, I think they want that.
Well, what if they put it all like in the same sort of menu system and all the same playlist, and like, in the Master Chief Collection, you can like quickly jump between the different game types, and Like how multiplayer games are evolving too. Like Overwatch 2 is technically gonna have the same multiplayer as Overwatch 1,
Well, yeah.
but like
So that's the
it's
thing.
it's
That's
it,
that's why I
it's all
say
evolving.
every 2 months. So like you give them Halo Reach. People are playing the multiplayer. People playing the single player. They start gravitating away. 2 months later, you drop Halo 1. They got the campaign. You got new multiplayer.
But the thing
Boom.
is, Brent,
They drop Halo
you could
2.
do that after Halo Infinite launches. You could launch Halo Infinite, and then like a few months after launch, when everyone's got bored of the campaign, you drop like Halo 3. You
Mm-hmm.
drop Halo 3 playlists and Halo 3 maps, and it's like then it's like a DLC for your Halo Infinite, your general Halo experience. They're basically doing this for World of Warcraft Classic. You pay for one subscription for World of Warcraft. You get World of Warcraft Retail, which is the modern experience, but you also get World of Warcraft Classic and Classic servers. And like what they're doing is they're dropping new dungeons for the retail version, and then weaving while you wait for that. And when you've gotten bored of that, they drop something for the classic servers, and they sort of weave it together. You know, it's all this stuff's overlapping, and it's all weird, and I'm confused now.
All right. Yeah. So Victor says, I agree. This is the last chance for 343. If they can't get it, give it to Respawn. The Geeky Nerd says, any chance Halo Infinite's pushed back? I don't think so. And Trey Bone wants to know, is there any way that you can see Street Fighter 6 not being on all consoles? I mean,
Ooh.
I,
Oh yeah, because Street Fighter is it 5? Is
5 was
exclusive?
exclusive because apparently Sony paid for the development of the game.
I would think that Capcom doesn't. Capcom had some problems for a little while. I would like to think Capcom's moved beyond that now, but who knows,
Yeah,
man.
plus I think Microsoft would want Street Fighter 6 because I don't think there's going to be a Killer Instinct 2 anytime soon.
Yeah,
And
I think I do think Killer Instinct will come back, but it's not a soon thing. They
yeah,
don't even have a developer for it right now.
yeah, so like I think they want that. So I would losing out on Street Fighter 6 would be big, especially if you don't have like your own fighter, but we went on long enough, really long podcast. We had a lot to talk about, so
Yes,
we
do.
appreciate you guys being here. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, follow Jazz and myself on Twitter, and should be back here making videos probably starting tomorrow. I got a whole bunch of video ideas I want to make, so thank you guys for sticking around and being so cool. So we'll see you next week. Right, Jez? Well, next week, hopefully.
Yep,
Thursday.
indeed do.
Same time, same channel. I'm sure we'll probably something new will come out about something because it always does. Well, no, the Game Awards is next week. So,
Oh God, yeah.
although
That's
we do it before the Game Awards, so we could either we'll do it next week for sure. So, all right, guys, have a good one, and we'll see you next week. Keep it gaming.
We love you.